fearful, and rightfully so. Emotionally, they're hurt. They are scared. They don't know what to expect.
Tuesday night, street bloggers smashed the topic, recorded suspect Haynes being turned over to authorities. Crime intervention specialist Anton Lucky received a call from Haynes' guardian.
I had one of my team members pray over the family, and then we began to talk to the detectives about how we were taking him to Loose Sterry Justice Center to turn himself in.
One other component with all of this in terms of investigation of this shooting in and of itself, they want to also find the teenager who allegedly helped that alleged gunman back into this school with that weapon. That too part of this investigation. And again, all of those individuals who were shot, none of those injuries are life-threatening. The emotional impact for hundreds of kids inside this school is real because, as we mentioned, this is not the first time this has happened. Reporting live, Steve Pickett, CBS News, Texas.
All right, let's go to let's hold on one second, see Mike. I got one more clip. Let's go to no, go ahead, see Mike. I'm gonna pull this clip up.
Why is so much happening in Texas? Is the laws lenient there? What's happening?
Man, I'm gonna tell you something. On everything I know, man. I think it's so many wannabe stars and shit like that. Like, you know, like it's so many lost souls out there. Cause I've been having a lot of complications out that way too. You know, just dealing with, you know what I'm saying, just like sorry, trash ass nigga, like individual type people. So I think it's really more of a low standard. Like the bar ain't been raised out there as far as quality. Like they still on, from what I'm seeing, they still, a lot of these people still on like 1980, 1990 gangbanging time.
Oh.
It's 2025. You know what I'm saying? Now, there's some real motherfuckers out there. Don't get it fucked up. I'm definitely not going that far to say that it ain't no solid niggas. But as far as this online shit and a lot of activity going on, like 90% of these niggas is fuck niggas. Like 95, 99%. Like it's a whole lot of bitch niggas up here from Texas. You know what I'm saying? Local bird up here right now talking about a bitch nigga from Texas. You know what I'm saying? There's somebody business. So it's like Texas just got a bunch of goddamn wanna be famous, wanna be stars. A lot of them niggas ain't never put the work in like that. So they wanna latch on to a motherfucker who has. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a lot of backdoor and backs. It's a lot of jealous ass niggas, man. That's how, I mean, it ain't, listen, California got strict laws. So you don't really have as many clowns as you got. These motherfuckers in Texas, I don't know what it is, man. Like, you know, all I can do is give you a bunch of scenarios, and I got a million of them. I got hundreds of scenarios with these trash ass, bitch ass niggas, man. And I'm talking about on all kind of levels. Like, I'm talking about motherfuckers, you know, late 40s, 50s, you know, gang banging and you know, joining gangs and shit like that, claiming gangs and stuff, like, you know, just like, and I ain't talking about like, you know, like really like authentic shit. I'm talking about these niggas, it's a lot of shit, man. It's a lot of shit, bro. Like it's a lot of shit I can go on with this. But like Texas needs some programs or something out there.
They need something. Because everything is happening out there.
Yeah, but I ain't gonna say everything, but it's a lot, man. Like it's a lot going on, and then you got reputation too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, these little niggas, man, they ain't really listening to nobody. So you know what I'm saying? They know everything, all that. So it's like, you know, you trying to preach something. It's like talking to a brick wall.
Wow. That's sad, bro. It's sad that these youngsters gotta learn the hard way, to behind them walls, it's altogether different.
Yeah, but see, the motherfuckers I'm talking about grown as hell. Some of them older than me. But then the young ones, they into that hip hop. They going off that hip hop octane. So it's hard to stop that. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to stop that type of energy.
But you don't know what's going on inside of a person's brain.
I'm telling you what's going on inside. I'm telling you right now. You got a bunch of motherfuckers who want a lot of credit for shit they ain't did. You know what I'm saying? You and motherfuckers who feel like they stars and pretty or being, at the like they let me tell you some real shit. It got to the point where Big U had to start doing had to start going live to expose these niggas. Like, if you such and such, man, this age, you don't need to be trying to act like you brung a certain, brung gangs to the certain cities.
Said that.
Yeah, these motherfuckers be up here a lot, man. Listen, man, these motherfuckers get up here. It's the internet. You can be who you want to be. These motherfuckers get up here. They the toughest nigga, toughest gang back, and these motherfuckers coming from Texas. You know what I'm saying? Like 90% of the bullshit online stems from some type of Texas situation. You know what I'm saying? It got some type of Texas nigga in the mix somehow. Like it's just simple as that. You know what I'm saying? Like you look at they just gunned down and killed the little girl with the rapper.
Yeah. Was that Texas?
Yeah. Same city this shit in.
Oh yeah, that was Texas.
Yeah. They just killed the rapper and his daughter at the car wash.
Yeah, that was Texas.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Crazy.
Yeah. So
what the youngsters don't realize, you don't get a gun in jail. It's all hands. And if you can't fight, you're going to get beat up every day.
That's a fact. I'm going to tell you something. Them little motherfuckers being there on suicide watch, they can't get to no gun. I'm telling you what's up. I done seen it. Yeah, I hear you. I done seen it go down. Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we hear you. All right, I'm gonna go to the video.
You don't get a gun in jail, so it's all
17-year-old Tracy Haynes, the suspect in the Dallas school shooting that left 4 students injured, has turned himself in. He was accompanied by his parents, who advised him not to say a single word without attorney present.
You're good, man. Come on, Tracy. You gotta get go. You gotta go. Stop. You got they try to get the media out of your face. I got him.
Yeah, you good.
Stop. All right. No, I don't like let them know. You keep your mouth closed. I'm talking to you. They want to talk to your attorney. You understand? Thank you. When they send them little snitches in there to talk to you, you don't talk to nobody. I've been there, Father God, right now in your name, I'm asking you to keep him safe. Keep him protected, Father God. Keep him with nothing of you, Father God. Nothing covers him. Nothing touches him, Father God. He got you. He got you. Can I walk with my son? You're good, man. It's dangerous. Come on, Tracy. You gotta get go. You gotta go. Stop. They try to get the media out of your face. I got it. You're good, man. It's dangerous. Come on, Tracy. You gotta get go. You gotta go. Stop. He got you. He got you. He got you. He got you. Can I walk with my son?
You good, man?
Come on, Tracy. Come on, Tracy. You got to get go. You got to go.
Stop. They trying to get
Fuck,
me
you
down.
not shaking hands. You see this shit?
I got him.
Yeah, he got you.
They trying to put the cuffs on him, thinking they trying to shake his hand.
What
That
you
motherfucking
mean?
shit. Look at this shit. They blow it up so y'all can see. This cop right here trying to put the cuffs on him. He think he's shaking his hand.
Can I walk with my son?
You good, man? Oh, the youngster think they got things?
Yeah.
Come on, Tracy. Come on, Tracy. You got to get go. You got to go.
Stop. They trying to get me down. You fight.
This my guy.
I got him. Yeah, you good.
Stop.
Be with you, okay?
Stop.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was out there in the DFW area.
But what gets me, he's not drunk or high or none of that.
Man, dude was 17 years old, man. He was off adrenaline.
But now he's gonna be in prison for about 30 years.
That nigga might get a 40 piece off a school shooting.
He's gonna get 30 off automatic.
Listen. Yeah, didn't nobody die. I think they gonna give him 40, he gonna do 20, some shit like that.
No, he's gonna do longer than that.
No, he only 17.
They don't care. He's an adult now.
Oh, damn adult, 17.
But they gonna try him as an adult. Watch.
Man, no. Let me tell you something. That law shit go by a few different ways. If you turn yourself in and all that, and don't bullshit with them, they might cut you some slack. But if they got to go look for you for months and shit,
You forgot who the president is. This case still come across his desk. You feel me?
the what now?
This case still comes across the president of the United States desk.
Why would it?
You talking about because it's a school shooting?
Exactly.
But is it a state crime or a felony being that it's on school ground?
So it's probably gonna be a state.
If it's state, Donald Trump don't have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, he only deal with federal. What I'm saying is, being that it's on school ground, is it gonna be a fed case or a state case?
No, it's a state case that carries a maximum of 20 years.
Okay.
But they gonna probably add on it. But 4 people got hit, so they gonna probably add that to it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He didn't kill nobody though, but it was 4 people injured.
But it's still attempted manslaughter.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it, it's attempted manslaughter. But what they looking at
not something that could be attempt. You could attempt murder. You can't attempt manslaughter.
Yeah, attempted murder. Yeah.
But that's not what the name of the charge is. Aggravated assault. They carries a maximum of 20 years.
So you said, so you
Enhanced
saying they
to-
can't give him no more than that?
Yeah, but he has 4 counts. That's 80 years.
That's right.
Like, charges being ran concurrent is a courtesy that is at the judge's discretion.
Yeah, that's just like TK. He already had got 55 years. The boy who did the race song, he already got 55 years, but he had another murder case. And he had another murder case that he wound up getting 80. And the judge ran it concurrent. She ran the 55 with the 80. That he got the 55. She ran that with what he already had.
When did this shooting happen? Did they tried him that quick?
No. TK did this when he was 17. Remember TK the rapper? He made a song called "The Race."
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's see what they got. Cause this headline news.
This is brand new, ain't it?
Everything brand new. The sentencing and the shooting. The school shooting just happened 2 days ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The shooting happened 2 days ago.
All right, let's go to KSAT 12 ABC.
All right, Mr. McIntyre, the jury found murder. Your punishment is to be assessed at 80 years in the prison. The court will give you credit for any time served. There's a $0 fine. And with regards to the other offense, State, are you requesting that to be stacked?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor.
And I'm assuming you're against that. Is that correct?
We are, Your Honor. We would just like to briefly, for the record, maintain that our argument would be that to run consecutively an 80-year sentence on top of 50.
Just one moment, counsel. Just give me one moment. Mr. McIntyre, I want you to know that I listened to all of the evidence in punishment and thought about whether or not your sentence should be stacked. I don't know where your mom is, don't know where your father is. I know that you had a rough childhood. And I do know that these offenses occurred when you were very young. And I understand the state of the law, what people consider an adult. I listened to the testimony of the expert that was brought by defense counsel. You've already been sentenced to murder in the other county, and then you have a murder here. And the sentence for 55 years, that's a stiff sentence. This 80-year sentence is a stiff sentence. And these are cases where you have to serve half your time, and that's day for day time. And I recognize that. Hopefully you will grow, but based upon his age, based upon the number of years that he has received out of Tarrant County and the number of years that he's received here, based upon his history and the lack of any type of good parent.
Who is that?
That's the dude. Let's take K-47. Remember the dude had the song "The Race"? You remember that song, "The Race," with the dude who he did the crime and then he went on the run.
Oh, he's a rapper?
Yeah.
And thought about whether or not your sentence should be stacked. I don't know where your mom is, don't know where your father is. I know that you had a rough childhood. And I do know that these offenses occurred when you were very young. And I understand the state of the law, what people consider an adult. I listened to the testimony of the expert that was brought by defense counsel. You've already been sentenced to murder in the other county, and then you have a murder here. And the sentence for 55 years, that's a stiff sentence. This 80-year sentence is a stiff sentence. And these are cases where you have to serve half your time, and that's day for day time. And I recognize that. Hopefully you will grow, but based upon his age, based upon the number of years that he has received out of Tarrant County and the number of years that he's received here, based upon his history and the lack of any type of good parenting. From what I can tell, his mother wasn't a good parent to him. His father wasn't a good parent to him. Child Protective Services was not good. And if you believe the testimony, I don't know why Child Protective Services would place children back with a father who put the children's mother in the hospital. Is there something else that needs to be done with our society? Yes. Is more money needed for Child Protective Services and their workers? Yes. And I do realize that while this is a lot of time, and I tell people all the time, any time that you do in custody is a lot of time. But by that same token, you're still alive. And what the state has said is true. You're still alive. You can still better yourself. If you end up in prison for the rest of your life, you're still alive. You still can improve yourself. Your family can still visit you. But the complainant in this case is deceased. And you need to internalize that the complainant in this case is deceased and that his family is never going to see him again. So you're going to have to make changes, and you're going to have to remove people from your life who are not of benefit in the means of making you a better person. And I do understand that sometimes people will go to prison. They join gangs because you need protection, because you're there by yourself. You're young, but you're going to have to make better choices. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to sentence him to 80 years in the prison, give him credit for any time served. There is a $0 fine. This will run concurrent with 1511547D.
He calm as shit. Why is he so calm?
This is second murder case.
But he's super calm. So he's been in jail before.
Nah, I just told you. When he was 17, he did some crimes. He went on the run. He was wanted by the FBI. He was like really wanted by the FBI. They was looking for him. It was all over the news, all over the place. So he recorded himself on the run, and it went viral. The song went viral.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he's the only he's like the only rapper to ever go platinum without performing.
So this cat is trying to be like him. Is this cat a rapper?
I don't know who this guy is. Nah, he just somebody who went, you know what I'm saying, who had an issue with somebody. You know, take a situation. You know, that take a situation, you know, it's a different deal.
Man, I don't know what these young cats thinking. I don't know if my young cousin was thinking, man. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I just
check this out right here. Let's see what they say.
Mr. McIntyre, the jury found you guilty of murder.
Okay, yeah, we just saw that one. Okay, let's see what his sister had to say.
Like the thing, like if we got bad grades. his punishments were too big for like the thing. Like if we got bad grades, then we would be punished. Like he would. It started off by maybe the whoopings got worse and worser, and then now it's not a belt. Now it's a 2x4, and we get a certain number of hits, and we get hit with it. And we have to lay there, and we can't get up. And it was times when Tamar was younger than me, so Tamar was younger than me, and he would cry, and just maybe they would think he was overdramatic, so they would tie him down to an ironing board, strap him down, like stuff like that.
And you said that these were examples of over-disciplining you both for things in the house?
Maybe bad grades, maybe just bad grades and stuff like that. We weren't bad kids to be doing going and doing anything we didn't have any business. We were too young, and we moved around a lot to know what's going on in our outside world. We were just learning. So it would be stuff like bad grades and stuff like.
Were there ever any signs that you were being hurt this way, or things that other people would notice?
Yes.
Give me some examples.
Bruises, busted lips, noses. People have witnessed before.
Did any of these things ever come to the attention of your teachers or other adults outside your house?
Tamar's teacher noticed.
Okay. What happened when she noticed?
I wasn't there the exact moment. A certain teacher took maybe noticed Tamar, and
But even not there, you there?
Yeah.
Even not there shouldn't cause that type of behavior. Now with my little cousin, a girl killed his mama. But then his father had been in the penitentiary his whole life too. So that's I was talking to his uncle the other day, which is my cousin, and he said he think that's what triggered by him not, being able to be with his mama. He went on. He just started hating life, but he didn't hate it. But he didn't hate people. He hated his own life.
Mm-hmm. I'm tell you something, man. A lot of them kids that be in them youth authorities and all that kind of shit, man. The motherfucker, man, all kind of shit be happening, man. And then, they might have parents that might be paraplegics and shit. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times the motherfuckers be with they grandparents or they, parents be paraplegics and shit like that. And so,
But I do know that Child Protective Services shit, that ain't nothing no more. It's not what it used to be. Not at all. I know that. Learned that through a friend of mine's kid. That Child Protective Service thing. And I think it's because they not getting the money that they need, or they working hard, they stressed out, and the system, like they say, the system put the kid back in the situation, and they think that was good for the kid, which is crazy.
Child Protective Service is a job that you actually have to give a fuck.
Yeah, that's real.
And instead of, people going into it actually giving a fuck and wanting to help and save kids, they go into it because it's a decent job. It's a government job. The benefits are great. The pay not all that great, but they have the best benefits in the world. And
yeah,
when you have people who don't really care, they're just gonna make sure that they follow the protocol and do whatever.
Yeah. I tried when I was younger, work for a summer youth program in LA, where I worked with Department of Public Social Service, which is the largest county building in LA, the biggest. And man, some of the things when I went out on those calls with those social workers, you know, it was his father that had, you know, molested his little 7-year-old girl, you know, and I couldn't take it. I jumped on the man and choked him and slammed him down to the floor. And they say, you can't do that. I say, well, this is not the job for me. But see, I had compassion. I was young and I was crazy like that. So I tried to choke the man out. Of course, now things are different because people are afraid, you know, when they take these kids, they figure they doing something wrong more than doing them good. Or the kid convinced them they want to be with that abusive parent because the kid is thinking that's love,
You
which is
can't be
crazy
jumping
to me.
on people.
Huh?
You can't be jumping on people. I know a guy. He was accused of touching his daughter by his daughter.
What happened?
I said I know a guy who was accused of touching his daughter by his daughter, and
Yeah.
although he wasn't killed, a lot of shit happened, and then her conscience came, and she told
Mm-hmm.
people, I lied on my daddy."
Oh, wow.
So you can't just jump on people because of what children are. When you talk about transaction analysis, you have the child state, the adult state, and the parent state. In the child, you have something called a little professor. That's the one that's going to lie, steal, and do whatever it is to get what it is that they want.
Yeah.
So the daughter was running over the mother. The parents were not together. The parents got back together in hopes that it would curb whatever the daughter was doing to the mother.
Mm.
It did, and she didn't like that. So she looked for a way to get rid of her father so that she could go back to running over her mother.
Wow.
Kids
Wow.
do that. I
Wow.
mean, to this day, you still have some people that say, I think he did it. And I'm like, how can you think that he did it after the girl said that she lied on him?
Mm.
So it's like we get into a state of victimizing and villainizing.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, we mix that up. The father was actually the victim of the daughter's words because they fucked over this dude.
Yeah.
They
That's crazy.
they didn't kill him, but they fucked over him.
Yeah, I mean, just having that bullshit attached to your name, what I'm saying, is, that's why Jay-Z, tripping like that. You know what I'm saying? The motherfuckers sit up there, put that type of charge on him. Then they drop that shit on his daughter's 13th birthday. So it's like,
Jay-Z got charges right now or no?
I mean, he done got them people to drop all that shit, but they was looking at that shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, they definitely gonna look into it, no doubt about it. I mean, that's their job. So you think Puffy gonna bring down a lot of people?
Uh, I don't know. If he
You,
was, I think Puffy is stand up dude. I can't see him making a move like that.
man, you see Harvey Weinstein finna come home, huh?
Who told you that?
Man, I've been watching Sir Harvey Weinstein. He been beating cases back to back. Harvey Weinstein been beating cases, bro. That was on regular news. We ain't talking Facebook.
I did hear it was some technicalities or something like that with his case, but yeah, I did hear that. You right about that. I did hear that like last year, so I think around the beginning of last year, I did hear.
Watch and see.
I don't know, man. If he winds up coming out, man, I don't know. I don't think that's a.
All he did was take some millions from people. That's all. Oh no, that was Bernie Madoff.
No, Harvey Weinstein raped a bunch of women, bro.
Yeah, he raped a bunch. I'm thinking about Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, he raped a bunch of bunch of models and shit.
Hey, champ, did you know Payroll was dead?
Man, that's some bullshit. You talk to Phil more about that?
No. Is he dead or not?
Man, I ain't heard that. I did hear Charm was dead, but I ain't heard the Payroll the P was dead.
Yeah, I know Charm is dead. I know that for sure. Charm had a heart attack in the back of a taxi. I mean, in the back of a car.
Yeah, they say he died on the golf course.
No, he had a heart attack in the back of a taxi. Gangster told me. In Vegas.
Oh.
In Vegas. He was in a taxi.
They must get him some bad powder or something.
Could be. But I ain't hear nothing about Payroll, so that shocked me.
Yeah, that blew me back when that was said. I don't know. I ain't heard that about Payroll. But them niggas up there though, you know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't all the way surprising, but I just ain't heard about it, man. A lot of them dudes just vanished off the planet, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. True.
A lot of them dudes vanished off the planet.
So on this Trump thing, the Tesla thing, I mean not on Musk thing, you think that's real?
The what now?
That Tesla hood, you think that's where you got it from or no?
Yeah, no, that Tesla and that KKK shit.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
That's a hell of a coincidence, man.
Yeah, let's see what they got.
I mean, they're coming with evidence, like the streets are talking.
The Queen woke up. She had to take a nap. I heard you snoring, Queen.
You didn't hear me snoring over the lion thing. You are so weird. You just scared that they was gonna tell on you.
Tell on me about what?
How they was practicing how to fight and beat somebody's butt.
Let's see.
But unbelievable.
Oh, this what it is. Hold on, hey, check it out. Check it out. They say upside down. Upside down is the KKK. Get the fuck out of here. Like I said, visualizing upside down and still it makes sense. Now seeing it upside down, damn. You see this shit? Let me go find a real symbol. I'm gonna go see.
Hey, somebody sent me one with the symbol talking.
What? Yeah, I think
They
it's
knew who to send
AI.
it to.
I think that shit's some AI shit. I gotta look at AI.
It might be publicity.
Yeah, I think that's it. AI.
How can it be AI?
AI does a lot.
No surprise. The grifter is grifting again. Apparently, Tesla odometers run at 2 or 3 times the speed. Why? so that they don't have to pay for car repairs, so that by the time you bring it in, your mileage is over your warranty. This
Oh
is
wow.
very low IQ behavior.
Hmm. I don't know why they hating on Tesla like that. Let me see. You got to talk to Elon Musk about this. I'm a big time. Yeah,
But
well,
with them saying that, you know what could happen?
what?
What if some white man take his symbol and turn it upside down
That's what
on
I'm
his car?
saying. Like I said, I never seen it like that. So I need to see it. Like I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
did you hear what's happening in China?
What?
They told US all the Louis and the Gucci and the Versace
Yeah,
and
they talking about the knockoffs and everything like that, man. Anything official from the stores, the signature shit that's made in Italy, man. All that old man, China ain't making all that.
no, but they saying that they are.
Man, listen, China make knockoffs.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
But
that's
you know,
it.
there is a
If I find out all this motherfucking shit I got come from, you know what I'm saying? If they false advertising, man, that's infringement. That's infringement sales and shit. I can sue them.
yeah, but
So
China
is
that what China
95% of Gucci and all this stuff is made in Italy, but they do have a market. They do have a friendship with the Chinese, with the Asian, but it's nothing like you'll know if it's made in China.
But did the agents come out and say it?
Listen,
what exactly did the agents say? China, what did they say?
They told us that we need to revolt. They said some real shit, and I ain't gonna tell you no lie. They said some real shit.
But I will tell you this: China can make anything.
Say again.
They said that we need to go in our own market. They said we need to stop fucking with them. They said that the government sold us out.
That's why, like last year, Temu outsold Amazon.
Okay, here goes some of the video right here. Let's go to factories in China are now people to buy direct. Even with an additional 145% tariff, you will still pay a lot less for identical luxury brand items made by their factories in China. And that's the whole thing. People still get these rates.
But see, Louis Vuitton, they got a factory in San Dimas.
Out of factory. Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, this Birkin bag at Hermes Boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One is called Muti from Italy, and the second is Weinheim from Germany, and the third is Haas from France. One piece of Togo leather, the same leather as this one, will cost 450 USD. And one piece of the leather is only enough to make one Birkin, okay? The thread. And of course, for Hermes Birkin, the thread is also the best top level. It's called Fil Al Chinois from France. This is actually the Rolls Royce in thread. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. And then the hardware. See, this hardware is called 316 hardware. It's also known as the ocean stainless steel because it can withstand the erosion of seawater. It's the best stainless steel. For one piece of that, the hardware will cost 150 USD. The edge oil. This edge oil is imported from Italy. It's called heat seal edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining, it used lambskin imported from France. For each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And also inside, there is a zipper from Riri brand. And the zipper for one bag is 10 USD. And then the cost of human resource. The French artisans is much more expensive than Chinese artisans. To finish one bag, the human resource cost will be 600 USD. The package, this is not that expensive, it's 10 USD. So now to sum those up, the total cost will be 1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory. But why Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag? That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material, you can just buy from us. Because for our bags, we use exactly the same material, same leather, same hardware, same edge oil. The only difference is one, we don't have the logo, so we don't have to pay so much amount of.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked they don't have the logo.
Well, that's a trademark.
Yeah, but they can get the logo. They got logos on other stuff.
All right,
Downtown.
Go to what now?
Downtown LA, they got a whole sidewalk of this the fake stuff.
They have the logo.
The fashion. Yeah, any popping city, they gonna have it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that stuff got the logo on it downtown.
Because they have the logo in China, but they cannot say that they have the logo.
Yeah, that's a different logo. That logo that's just like the fake Jordans. The booty stick out in the fake Jordans.
Hey, you getting the Shaqs instead of the Jordans.
Yeah, you getting the goddamn Buffy the Bodies. Motherfucker, they got their Jack, their shit. Jordan be dunking. You know, he got his legs open. You know, whatever. Man, them fake joints. He got a big old ass out there, motherfucker. Man, like a damn Black Widow or something.
But you know who else is mass producing though real tough and it's crazy? Indonesia and not Indonesia, Philippines. They selling that same stuff that's downtown. I have a friend from Philippines. He said he can get you a Gucci wallet for $3.
You know who?
Yeah, but that's the shit they talking about. That ain't like in Italy. You know what I'm saying? Like I said.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they talking about, that knockoff stuff. Check it out.
You know who is producing high quality accessories for those luxury brands like Chanel, Estee Lauder, L'Oreal? You're saying you're the supplier behind all these beauty accessories for those big luxury brands? L'Oreal, MAC, Giraffe, Bobbi Brown, and even Rosewood Hotel. Last week we also received an order, Royston. Yeah, the comb like 20,000. The comb, like color. Now show me your factory. Show me the production line. Here, this is our cutting room. So you can see the machine. Here claw clip and here comb there. After cutting, we can take the claw clips out. Like this. Here's our molding area. Take off the plate. After make the mold the shape so we can include the spring and the flower accessories.
This is like the final touch up. You have to polish and check like this.
Defective.
Quality control.
Here's our coating plate. On the surface, we will spray a draw effect. Here's our painting plate. Here's one of our warehouse. Here's our material area. All the acid board we have ordered here.
So tell me, what is this? This is like PVC or acrylic?
Acid material. The material is eco-friendly and more durable and flexible than PVC or acrylic materials. It's the most expensive material.
How expensive? For this one, for example, this one like 50 RMB one piece.
One piece, 50
Yeah,
RMB.
50 RMB.
And the cost of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, China is cold, man. They have made this truck. It was no Japanese. Yeah, Japanese. They have made this truck look identical to a Rolls Royce Colin, and it was convertible, and it was a Toyota. I couldn't believe it. Identical. Only thing different was it had a Toyota symbol. I don't think they'll ever bring it out, but when I saw that, it blew my mind.
Check this out.
Feel cheaper? No, that's not quality issue. It's luck. Your made in Italy Gucci 80% come from Chinese factory. They just add the logo in Europe to make you pay the price of 10 times.
Wow.
Close your eyes. If your hammer says made in China, does it feel cheaper? No, that's no quality issue. It's luxury brand washing. Fun fact, the hand stitching your product, 42% are Chinese artisans. We don't do cheap. We do underrated luxury. Why pay 2,000 euro for Parisian air? Same leather, same craft, just without the European fairy tale facts. Be a luxury rebel. You can shop on Chinese platforms such as Taobao, 1688, Tianmao, Jingdong. You can even go directly to Guangzhou, Yiwu, Quanzhou, Wenzhou to buy. Don't know how to buy, how to pay, or arrange delivery? Just PM me. GoNest to provide free shopping guidance and shipping services for you.
Wow. That's deep, man. That is
The
deep.
Jetsons for real.
But it's more black people buying it than anybody.
Don't say
With
that.
life.
You don't think
Say
so?
I mean, we definitely put a huge amount in there, but you know, every race, you know what I'm saying, spend money if they got it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you don't see the movie stars. You don't see the movie stars with no Gucci.
That's a lie. That's a lie. What they do is, you know, a lot of them dudes, they feel like they wife should have all the luxury and shit. So they, you know, they might wear some $20 jeans and they wife got on them, you know, $2,000-$3,000 pair of shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how they kick it like that.
But how is it that Selma Hayek
Another shot.
husband owns? How does Selma Hayek husband own all those designers?
You might got some sweatshops. Like when you got factories and shit like this.
No. He owns the actual companies.
What company he owns?
A lot of them. Look into it. Selma Hayek's husband owns designer companies. Selma Hayek, the actress.
Somebody said China has the expertise and they stole enough intellectual property to produce anything. Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about it. Basically what China's saying is, you know, you can buy directly from us and we'll give you something similar or better. You know what I'm saying? And they tired, and with this tariff, they tired of being labeled like this cheap labor. Like we're not cheap labor. They tired of being labeled like cheap people. Just not cheap quality, but cheap people. Like they definitely heated about this. That tariff pissed off a lot of people. Tariff shit pissed off a lot of people. Let me shot some bro.
Yo, what's good? Yo, peace to the panel. What up, everybody? Yeah, yo, China can reproduce anything, man. They got it. And I saw that same thing earlier. And what dude was saying, like he was explaining, they'll make 80% or 40% of the whatever product it is, then they'll ship it to France or Italy, wherever, just so they can put the logo on it, and on top of that, put the extra markup. You know what I'm saying? Because China produce everything in this world.
You got that right.
They got the manufacturing on smash, and we thanks to us and us losing 90,000 goddamn manufacturers since the early 90s.
Yeah, but we never was able to compete with China.
No worries, no worries.
The top to the left, like that.
I would think it wasn't no competition with China. It was
You're
we
fully
do
done?
yeah, we hear you. Yeah, I don't think it was no competition with China. I think it was more of China make this, we buy that and sell it.
Yeah, like you said, but you got to figure
But didn't America make their money
when they
off
produce
of utilizing
everything.
the cheap labor in China?
You got to remember, China got real technology. Like they can reproduce. They can build whole cities in a month.
Yeah.
So their technology's at another level. It might be cheaper, but it's not really cheaper when you think about it, because they're using slave labor.
And that's what and that's why they were saying that being that they got this tariff going on, they gonna stop arresting those sweatshop workers.
What you mean here in the States?
Yeah, because what China was doing was China was having a crackdown on those knockoff manufacturing companies that had the sweatshops inside that under the ground and shit. They was knocking them people off and throwing them in jail. Now China's saying that they're not gonna find them no more.
Yeah, because that's part of their whole strategy. They're going to also build a bunch of factories and then start flooding the world market with a bunch of cheap products. It's about to be crazy. But they on it. Like I said, they can build a whole city in a month. Imagine what they could do with a few factories.
Let me tell you something. Anytime anything major gets shut down by the government, all that shit do is it crank up the underworld to get paid. If
There
you
you go.
if they stop selling liquor right now, you can't buy liquor no more all year. That shit ain't gonna do nothing but turn a lot of houses into a bunch of speakeasies and shit. So
Yep.
So that's really what's going on with this right here. What Trump did was he pressing everybody with this tariff shit. China ain't backing down. They going back and forth about it just off of pride, I guess. I don't know. So in the midst of all that,
China is very prideful, and Japan, oh my goodness.
yeah. So
Are
that's
they
really
prideful, or are they prideful, or are they prepared? And
No, but
America can't stop them.
no, but they always have their honor is their pride. I mean, they're a high honor country, especially the Japanese, man. If they go up on their parts on their cars, oh my goodness, they make the best cars. Nothing like a Japanese car, nothing in the world.
You don't like those German-made cars?
I don't know.
Japanese are the best.
I think Mercedes the best thing going, man.
No, they not.
I don't know,
When it comes to
man.
quality,
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think
Japanese.
hey, listen,
Nothing beats a Toyota.
if you want to drive to the sun and back back to earth, you know, get you a Toyota or something or Honda or something like that, and you can drive forever. But you know, I know how this game go,
But
man. I
if you
think,
want the luxury,
yeah, if you want stability and safety, I done been in quite a few accidents, man, and I know Mercedes, they hold their end of the bargain. Your
and their
girl,
value.
I'm trying
when
to
your
tell you
girl,
that German craftsmanship can't beat it. Fuck what they
I'm
talking
telling
about.
you,
Okay,
man,
exactly.
Mercedes is on point. I'm telling you what I know,
Wait a
say
minute. Wait a minute. Wait a
in
minute.
my life a few times. Hey,
Wait a minute.
your girl that ran through and killed them families in a Brea in that car crash and didn't get a scratch on her. She was in a Mercedes.
Come on.
Well, yo,
Come
my
on.
train coming, people. Yo, appreciate you, Roni. You already know. If y'all up on the other, when I get on the other side, I'm gonna come back up. Appreciate you. You already
Peace
know.
and love. Peace and
Peace
No
and
love.
doubt.
love. You already got it, Queen.
Peace.
Peace.
Did we ever hear from Keys?
You know, it got bad, man. They said they talked to him a few weeks ago or whatever. They said they seen him at a I talked to his nephew a few days ago. Um, he said he seen him about 2 weeks ago or something like that. But it wasn't that long though.
So he's alive
He,
and well.
he's a he didn't really go into detail. He didn't. That's what's crazy about it. He didn't. He said he was alright, but he didn't go into detail or nothing. You know.
Okay.
He didn't go into detail. So it's hard to kind of really say what you know what's really happening. But I'm gonna keep on trying now. You know what I'm saying? See what's going on. But it's hard to say what's going on.
Facto, stop hustling and join the convo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good deal. Let's see.
You've got game. This is actually insane. So Chinese government has removed the confidentiality clause with luxury brands and Chinese manufacturers. So now what's happening is all the Chinese producers are coming out and they're telling the world that they make all the stuff that we think is luxury and pay an ultimate price for. They're even adding their own URLs and where to buy directly from them instead of going to these luxury, so-called luxury brands. Apparently everything is being made in China and then they're shipped to Europe for the finishing touches. So what they're saying is, this is our work. We made this. Hermes just put their name on it and added 5 zeros. All I can say is, China, good on you. China, you've got game. This is actually insane. So Chinese government has removed the for those luxury brands like Chanel, Estee Lauder, L'Oreal. You're saying you're the supplier behind.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with that. You know, they got different different takes. I know for a fact, you know, when it comes to quality and stuff like that, you know, certain brands they may venture off to deal with other countries and stuff, but it's not gonna be their signature product.
I knew when they teamed up with Africa, something was going on.
Some say.
No. That's gonna be the biggest takeover right there. When you see how we speak English fluently.
Come on.
Yeah, wait till you see the Africans up there. All that shit. It's gonna be
I
crazy.
saw them when the COVID happened and they were kicking them out. And they were speaking it
They
like
was
second nature.
dogging Americans out. When that COVID hit or whatever that was, I forgot it was either COVID or war. It was something going on, a war. It was
It
something
was
happening.
COVID and they were kicking them out like
It was
forcing
them
them to
Asian
leave.
people. Yeah, they was kicking all the black people out. Then they was doing the same thing in Africa too.
Hmm. But Africa, China, India, and Russia are supposed to be uniting in the gold currency. They clowning America at the end of the day. Donald Trump's voice saying,
As long as there's a tag saying made in China, the bag can never be luxury. However, in fact, more than 80% of the luxury bags in the some say as long as there's a tag saying made in China, the bag can never be luxury. However, in fact, more than 80% of the luxury bags in the world are made in China, but those luxury brands just won't acknowledge that. They take almost finished bags from China factories back to their own factories and just do the repackaging and logo installing, something like that. That way, the bags will appear at their boutiques as made in Italy or made in France. You know, those sophisticated European countries, which make you feel mysterious, royal, and thus luxury. Now, close your eyes. Let's just do a little very easy experiment in your head, okay? Imagine that you have an Hermes bag, and suddenly the label on it changed from made in France into made in China, while everything else, like leathers, zippers, and hardware, remain the same. Do you suddenly feel that your bag is not as luxury as before? If you do, that means you have been misled and poisoned by the market campaign of those luxury brands for too long. Welcome to the real world. Now you see, those bags are made in China by our intelligent and diligent Chinese artisans. Let's not be poisoned and misled by the market campaign any longer and be a real person. Buy a bag from us, from our factory in China. See the real world for yourself.
That's deep.
but we're talking more than just bags. Just a few years ago, they banned China from making our baby food because they were putting female hormones into the food, and we're producing. Look what we're producing from it. So it's a lot more than just bags that China's producing for America. We got to see the whole picture, not just some of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the foods that they feed us in the United States, a lot of the ingredients are banned in other countries.
Exactly.
That yellow, yellow 5, and that red and all that kind of stuff.
The
High
whole
fructose corn
GMO.
syrup.
Mm-hmm.
High fructose corn syrup, and I love me a Coke in the morning. But
Yeah, I was about to say, if you look at a Coca-Cola or a Fanta over here, Fanta got a like Coca-Cola gonna have shit, but if you go to Germany or whatever, or Europe or Asia, it only got a few ingredients.
because all of those food colorants and additives and
Or
preservatives are
cancer.
banned.
They say they cancer.
What about hair supplies?
Oh, it's everything. It's not just food.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
they say
saying.
that
It's
they say
bigger
that,
than a bag. It's
but
way bigger than a bag.
no. They say that the hair got it lead to cancer too.
Yeah, that's what they're linking it to now.
They're linking up the cancer with
Yet America allows these products to be made and shipped and sold over here. Is it part of the plan?
That's some deep shit. What y'all think about Gail King going out of space and all that? Talking about she feel like she should be called an astronaut. She said if it was a man that did it, they'd be an astronaut.
I don't like that people are calling it a ride. A ride, you know, you never see a male astronaut who's going up in space and they said, oh, he took a ride. We actually duplicated the route that Alan Shepard did. That's why it's called, this particular capsule is called the New Shepard. We duplicated that route. No one said he took that ride. Yeah. It's always referred to as a flight or a journey. So I feel that that's a little disrespectful to what the mission was and what the work that Blue Origin does. We use space technology all the time, whether it's your GPS, whether it's your satellite. That doesn't just happen. Every time a flight goes up, they get some type of information. Two of the astronauts, I still have a hard time calling myself an astronaut, but two of the astronauts, I don't like that people are calling it a ride. A ride, you know, you never see a male astronaut who's going up in space and they said, oh, he took a ride. We actually duplicated the route that Alan Shepard did. That's why it's called, this particular capsule is called the New Shepard. We duplicated that route. No one said he took that ride. Yeah. It's always referred to as a flight or a journey. So I feel that that's a little disrespectful to what the mission was and what the work that Blue Origin does. We use space technology all the time, whether it's your GPS, whether it's your satellite. That doesn't just happen. Every time a flight goes up, they get some type of information. Two of the astronauts, I still have a hard time calling myself an astronaut, but two of the astronauts, I don't like that people are calling it a ride. A ride, you know, you never see a male astronaut who's.
As you can see, she went out of space. She get back on Earth. She get back on Earth talking about she an astronaut.
Are they really going out of space?
No, they already did it. You didn't see it. Her, Katy Perry. Yeah, she went out there with Katy Perry and some.
Missed that one.
She went up there with some actors and some singers and shit, and some models.
So what was the purpose and did it benefit us in any way?
I mean,
did we learn something new? I mean, what's
the
bottom line to it?
If you believe, you know, that she
Right.
actually went up there, you gotta be a dreamer or something to get up with this shit. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I ain't really that fresh like that. I just thought that was ridiculous for her to sit up there and be like, she's an astronaut now and all that other shit. It was another Texas team that stabbed a student. It was a white boy stabbed a Mexican, and he just started his trial.
I heard a little bit about that. Was he arrested with $1 million bail?
The white boy got $1 million bail reduced to 175. Miss Real. How about that?
Sounds about right.
Carmelo got 250. They reduced that white boy that did the same shit or worse to 175.
And he wasn't targeted and jumped by two people?
No.
And hasn't a lot of information come forth about the coaches saying they told him to go stand under that tent?
I heard that.
Yeah,
the coaches told them to go stand under the tent. The white boy brother, the one who lived, who was not stabbed, he said that they took his phone or they took his bag or they took something. So that changes the whole dynamic of the case. Like, if you took his shit, and this is something that Judge Joe Brown was speaking on, he's like, that's a robbery. And if a murder comes from the robbery, his brother is the one who's actually responsible
I agree.
for the murder.
I agree. I
That's
agree.
if because I definitely heard that they jumped him. So yeah, I ain't gonna tell you no lie. For him to even get a bond, it gotta be some inclusive evidence going on. I'm trying to find that it's another case, not this one. But this shit done took over the web, so that's all they focus on. But it was another white kid that did that. It was another stabbing.
The hatred towards Mello compared to this guy is night and day. I mean, the racists are out showing their behinds.
Hey, I promise y'all that could have easily been me. I wouldn't know about no white boy or nothing like that, but that could have easily been me. So I definitely so I don't situation, but that's a crazy story right here with that. Because I know exactly how it can happen. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I
They're
just think
saying that he took the money, bought a house, and he hasn't even touched the money.
I
It's
don't know
just
why
so many lies.
they trying to treat this kid like he's some project inner city like just like low life thug or something, and it just don't
Exactly.
work like that. That's they trying to play this dude off, and it's sad they doing that. But
Even how the media is portraying him on the pictures, darkening them on purpose to try to make him look like he's some kind of thug, and we got videos of the victim or the young man who attacked him and got killed. They're holding rifles, they're hunting, murderers. They're out there doing their thing and bullying people, and there's so many different people talking about it. And something came out today about the father being arrested. And where's the mother? And how come there aren't any pictures of the mother?
Why would the father be arrested? What happened?
For aggravated what did they say, he raped somebody?
Their father had cancer.
People with cancer don't rape people?
Their father had cancer, they said.
Allegedly. I don't know. I'm just hearing all these different stories. But something came out today about him being he was arrested for aggravated assault or something like that. Sexually assaulting someone, allegedly.
Wow.
okay, here we go right here. I found it. All right, news about murder trial in case in Allison. All right, let's go to KWTX News 10.
Anticipated trial for Kason Allison, who is charged with murder in the stabbing of Joe Ramirez at Belton High School back in May of 2022.
News 10's Isabella Quintanilla was in the courtroom all day today. She joins us now outside the Bell County Justice Center with more from the first day of the trial. Isabella.
Yes, that's right, Lauren and Gordon. The 156th District Court was packed today with families, friends, witnesses, and others, all who have been waiting nearly 3 years to learn the fate of now 21-year-old Kaysen Allison. We first heard from the state prosecutors who are charging Kaysen Allison with murder, saying he was intentionally cutting and stabbing Joe Ramirez, to which Allison pleaded not guilty. His defense attorneys then gave their opening statement implying it was self-defense. Defense attorney Zachary Boyd told the jury, quote, Kaysen was in the fight for his life, where he was jumped by 5 friends, end quote. Heard from 5 state witnesses today, including a 911 record custodian, the Belton ISD Director of Safety and Security, 2 teachers who saw the aftermath of the stabbing, and the school nurse. At the start of the trial, they played 5 911 calls from 2 staff members, 2 students, and a parent. In one of those calls, a girl identified Kaysen, claiming she saw him running through the parking lot with a bloody nose. They then played security footage from several cameras showing Joe and 3 others walking into a bathroom, Kaysen and another boy walking in shortly after. 5 boys, including Joe, then ran out of the bathroom and split up, with Kaysen once again running out shortly after. We also saw footage of Joe running down the main hallway, bleeding onto the floor and then collapsing. Blood immediately began to pool as teachers and staff quickly surrounded him. Many of Joe's family and friends were in tears as they watched this all play out. One witness, the first to get to Joe, said, quote, his breathing was rapid and shallow. It appeared to me as if he had a punctured lung. Another witness, the school nurse, said they gasped when they cut open Joe's shirt, finding a gaping wound across his left chest. She also shared that a student that had been in the bathroom was brought to the nurse's office and was on the phone with his mom saying, quote, Kaysen stabbed Joe. Now, at this time, we are still hearing from state witnesses, and the trial will resume tomorrow at 9 a.m., but we will, of course, be keeping you updated throughout this trial. Reporting live in Belton is Isabella Quintanilla, QTX News 10.
We want to go back to the Kaysen Allison trial. We just got word that the video is in from our reporter, Sydney Walker, and she has more details tonight.
Lindsay and Bailey, it's becoming clearer and clearer what happened on that May 3rd day in the bathroom at Belton High, but we're also getting more details about what happened at a prom after party just the weekend before the incident. Some key things to note from today. We heard from a friend of Ramirez, his brother, and a student who just happened to be in the bathroom. We're also learning more about a verbal altercation between Allison and Ramirez at a prom after party. Ramirez's brother testified that Allison had been acting aggressive toward his prom date, and Ramirez stepped in to defend his brother. What followed was the creation of a Snapchat group where Allison proposed that he and Ramirez fight in the woods near West Temple Park. The first teen, who had already been questioned by the state yesterday, faced cross-examination today. The defense asked him to put himself in Allison's shoes and if he himself would have waited, quote, for the second punch. The state redirected by asking him to identify who had the knife in the video and if he would have stabbed someone in a fist fight. Another student who was in the bathroom simply by chance revealed that Belton High students caught in fights were fined $300 tickets. He also confirmed that the bathroom doors can be locked from both the outside and inside, but it is still unknown if the door was locked during the fight. During Ramirez's brother's testimony, there were multiple calls for a mistrial by the defense following a series of objections. The trial ended at about 12:30 today due to some scheduling issues, and Joe Ramirez's brother was the last on the stand, so we'll hear more from him tomorrow, along with some others, when the trial resumes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. In Belton, Sydney Walker, 6 News.
CHRONICLES reporting in Belton. It was the second day in court today for Kaysen Allison and the friends and family of Joe Ramirez. Allison is facing a murder charge of murdering and stabbing former Belton High School classmate Joe Ramirez in 2022. I was in the courtroom today while they played a video of the fight that took place in the bathroom on a cell phone. Tuesday morning, Detective Tulloch was the first to take the stand. During his testimony, images he took of the school after the stabbing were shown, many showing droplets and trails of blood in the boys' bathroom and throughout the halls. During his testimony, the defense claimed he overlooked a piece of evidence by not taking a photo of the lock on the inside of the bathroom door, saying it was a failure in the investigation because, quote, the lock on the door in the boys' bathroom plays a pivotal role in this investigation. Another witness to take the stand was one of the boys inside the bathroom at the time of the incident. He was the young man who recorded an 8-second video of the fight. The video shows Joe Ramirez throwing the first punch to Kaysen Allison. That's when Allison is shown swinging back at him with a knife in his right hand. The two can be seen shifting to the corner of the bathroom, continuing to fight. Seconds later, Joe's brother is shown lunging towards Allison's friend, and 4 boys are seen fighting one-on-one fights in that bathroom. During that testimony, the defense asked the witness why he started recording and if Joe liked to have his fights recorded. The witness answered yes. That same witness said it didn't seem like Kaysen wanted to fight, and he stopped recording after he heard a scream and got scared. The trial finished up around 3 o'clock. Testimony is set to begin Wednesday morning around 9. Reporting in Belton, I'm Dominique Lay.
Back on May 3rd, 2022, Kaysen Allison allegedly stabbed Jose, a.k.a. Joe Ramirez, sending him to the hospital. He died later that day. Police took Allison into custody, charging him with murder the next day. He was held on $1 million bond for about a month. He bonded out in July of 2022. After his bond was reduced, on the anniversary of Joe's death in 2023, the community gathered for a memorial for Ramirez. His former classmates marching 4 miles through Belton in his memory.
He didn't want to fight. That's what 2 former Belton High students said about Kaysen Allison in court today.
The trial of the suspect accused of stabbing and killing Joe Ramirez resumed this morning in Bell County, bringing 4 new witnesses to the stand.
News 10's Madison Herber has been in court all day and joins us live now with more on what was uncovered. Madison?
Good evening, Lauren and Gordon. The witnesses included 2 people who were former students that were in the bathroom the day that fight broke out, Tito Shamel and Angel Murillo. Shamel explained to the court that he was a good friend of Joe Ramirez and was in the bathroom with Ramirez and Allison when chaos ensued, and he even caught a portion of that altercation on video, which was shared today with the jury. And there was also a Belton Police Department detective who revealed the crime scene photos from that day. And then there was also a friend of Allison's and an acquaintance of Ramirez, Raina Barber. She took the stand and explained to the court how she was trying to calm Ramirez down just moments before the fight broke out. Now, the photos from the crime scene followed a trail of blood droplets around part of the school, leading to a pool of blood where Ramirez collapsed. The detective explained that it was after getting photos of the scene, he talked to a witness who provided a statement and video of the fight that started in the bathroom. Video was replayed from yesterday showing the school hallway where you see the boys entering the bathroom and then leaving sometime later in a rush. And then the short video caught on Shamel's phone of what happened on the other side of the door was played. Shamel explaining that what he caught on video shows Ramirez taking the first swing at Allison, and then you see Allison pull out the knife before a loud scream is heard and the video cuts off. Barber said Allison didn't want to fight and just wanted to make it to graduation. And Shamel said in the moment, it didn't look like Allison wanted to fight. Barber also said that Ramirez's friends were known to fight, and Shamel saying Ramirez liked having his fights recorded, and that this fight was planned, but no one expected it to happen on school grounds. Barber said it wasn't normal for Allison to have a knife on him, but she knew he had one because Allison told her he got one for protection. An altercation was described by former students that an argument broke out at a prom after party, and it was likely that Ramirez and Allison verbally fought over a girl. Shamel told the court that Ramirez looked surprised to see Allison in the bathroom that day, and you could feel the tension between the two. Barber is seen talking to Ramirez on the hallway security footage, visibly upset. She started to cry as she explained to the court that she was trying to tell Ramirez that the fight isn't worth it because they are about to graduate. Court wrapped for the day just 20 minutes after a 5th witness was brought in, Josh Grimes, another good friend of Ramirez, who was also in the bathroom when the fight started. So they will be back here tomorrow morning at 9, where the defense will continue to question Grimes. Reporting live in Temple, Belton, Madison Herber, KWTX News 10.
First, our top story.
Yeah, 5 more witnesses took the stand today in the murder trial of Cason Allison.
Allison is facing charges alleging he stabbed and killed fellow Belton High School student Joe Ramirez. 6 News reporter Sydney Walker was back in the courtroom for day 2 of the trial. And Sydney, what did you hear from today?
Today, we heard from a Belton PD detective who was there that day on the scene, as well as a close friend of Cason's who tried to break up the fight before it even happened, plus 3 boys who were in the bathroom the day of the fight when it occurred. Yesterday, we heard a lot from staff about what Joe's injuries were and the response that was taken, but today was focused way more on the dynamics between the 2 boys as well as their respective friend groups. For instance, after multiple graphic crime scene photos were shown, we learned from a Belton PD detective's testimony that he had obtained a video taken inside the bathroom by one of Joe's friends. His friend admitted Ramirez liked to have his fights recorded, but that he deleted the video because he was, quote, scared of what happened. The video shows Ramirez punching Allison, and Allison swinging back a knife in his right hand. Allison is later cornered, and a scream can be heard coming from Ramirez. We're also learning more about what led to that May 3rd day. Multiple witnesses today shared that the tension between the 2 began at a prom after party at Allison's friend's house, and that plans to fight after school and off campus were in place. Allison's friends testified that he had told her about the plans, but, quote, he didn't want to fight. He wanted to graduate. We ran out of time during the testimony of one of the boys who was in the bathroom, but he's set to return tomorrow when the trial returns at 9 a.m. To read more about what the witnesses testified today, go to kcentv.com. Live in Belton, Sydney Walker, 6 News.
All right, Sydney, thank you for that update.
I'm Dominic Lay reporting live in Belton. Both sides made opening arguments today in day 1 of the trial against Cason Allison. Allison is accused of the stabbing death of former Belton High School classmate Joe Ramirez back in 2022.
Yeah, so that's a hot case right now. This trial is going on, and you can see people turning in, turning out. All right, let's go to Fox News. Disgusting Trump borders are calls out Dems for coddling an alleged MS-13 gang member.
Are Tom Holman. Now, Tom, if that is not good enough for Chris Van Hollen, who traveled to El Salvador today to check on this aggrieved prisoner, or the folks over at some of the other cable networks, then I guess they'll have proven all of our points tonight.
I mean, Chris Van Hollen, the guy that didn't want to sign the Laken Riley Act that protects American citizens against illegal alien criminal gang members, who instead of protecting Americans, his constituents, his taxpayers, he goes to El Salvador and defends an illegal alien with a deportation order that's a member of MS-13 that's been designated a terrorist organization by President Trump. That's where he went to defend it. It's just disgusting. The same senator who state yesterday released an illegal alien charged with murder, refused the ICE detainer, hit the street. So rather than protecting his community, protecting the residents of Maryland, he goes to El Salvador to coddle an MS-13 gang member terrorist. It's ridiculous. And also, I talked to an MS-13 expert today who also showed me pictures of his hand, where he says absolutely the tattoo on one of his hands was absolutely an MS-13 gang tattoo, nothing questionable about it. 2 judges said he's an MS-13 member. ICE says he's an MS-13 member. Intelligence community says he's an MS-13 member. El Salvador says he's an MS-13 member. So, you know, it's just ridiculous. And as far as all the people who are speaking out against us, I cannot believe for a minute there's that many stupid people in the world. Now, AOC, on the smart meter, she's a 0. We'll give them that. But I can't believe these people really believe what they're saying. They got to be just pushing the narrative, for political reasons. They can't be that dumb to think that that this person is an MS-13 gamer and a public safety threat.
Tom, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, yesterday said that he was also involved in human trafficking. Is there evidence of that in addition to the MS-13 evidence?
There's some information in some files that he may have been involved in human trafficking. MS-13 are famous for human trafficking. MS-13 are famous for bringing little girls into our country, minors, and prostituting them and put them in the forced sex trade. They have also known in high schools to take young girls and bring them into the gang and put them on the street to prostitute. That's one of the main causes of their finances is prostitution of young girls across the United States. MS-13s in over 20 countries across the globe. They're actually in I think they're in 48 states, United States now. They're a big organization. But you know where they're not? You know where they're not active? El Salvador, because President Bukele shut them down. They don't exist on the streets in El Salvador.
Are you concerned about Judge Boasberg's contempt order and the discussion surrounding that, given this consensus among the elite legal set, Tom, that you all are defying, essentially defying the Supreme Court here?
No. Look, I've been doing this job since 1984, and I work for the greatest president. I don't care if people like me saying that or not. He proves it every day. We secure the border. Today, while I'm talking to you, the border's the most secure in the history of this nation. He did that in 7 weeks, and Biden couldn't do it in 4 years. We have arrested more criminal alien gang members, public safety threats, and national security threats in 2 months than Joe Biden did in 2 years. No, I think we did the right thing. Law enforcement professionals at ICE, they swear under oath that this person is MS-13. Again, you got 2 federal judges saying it's MS-13. I think we did the right thing. As far as the notion that, well, he had a withholding order not to be removed to El Salvador, he's not an illegal alien. He's just not an illegal alien anymore. He's a designated terrorist. There's a different level of due process for a terrorist. So I think we stand by our guns. I think we did the right thing, and I think the Attorney General of the United States agrees that we did the right thing. So we'll stand by that.
All right, Tom, thank you as always for.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not.
That basically was aimed at the uproar that they got for the guy that's over there at the El Salvador prison, who they claim he was not a member of the gang or anything. So the czar's saying something different.
So
he's saying the guy, he's saying the guy really is a gang, but remember they still. Like I said, I understand when he said that. Like when he blatantly said like he can't believe people are that stupid. That's really how I feel. I feel the same way about them people, man. Like this shit. I don't know necessarily about that case, but I do know that he had MS-13 tattoos and stuff like that. So I don't know what's the deal. But
wait a minute.
As far as his criminal history, I don't know. But it looked like he was gang affiliated with them. So I don't know what the scoop is, but. It's some real.
Whoa. So you telling me he did have the tattoo?
Yeah, they had him that dude had tattoos and everything.
Okay. Well, if you got the tattoo, if you got the tattoo, that alone gives you 15 years on top just for having it. Did you know that?
What? Yeah, I did hear that. What about the teen murder? What about the teen that murdered the parents in extremist plot to kill President Trump?
What?
You know about that?
But back to that boy. Yeah, just for the tattoo alone is 15 years with no trial.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the tattoo, 15 years with no trial, just for the tattoo. And I know this for a fact because I just talked to this girl that lives over that way. And she said whenever she goes home, she's here now in Redlands. Whenever she goes home, anybody that's got a tattoo, they stopping you as soon as you get off the plane and they interviewing you just for your tattoos. And I asked her, how did she feel about that? She said she feels great about it because, you know, she's born and raised there. She said her uncle got killed over $5. Say they asked for uncle for some money. He said all he got is $5 and they killed him.
Mm.
So I
That's
say,
a
so
wild
how do you
shit.
so how do you feel every time you go over there? They gonna stop you. She say, if that's what it takes for them to get everybody, so be it. That was deep.
Mm-hmm. That sounds crazy. Let's go to Law Crime Network. Teen murdered parents in extremist plot to kill President Trump. FBI.
Shocking new details of what the FBI found on the phone of a 17-year-old accused of killing his parents in Wisconsin. His dark conversations with shady online figures painting an alleged motive: kill his parents to get the money needed to kill President Trump, overthrow the U.S. government, and commit violent terror attacks across the U.S. We're diving into the dozens of pages from the FBI that were just unsealed, showing a dark and twisted online world of white supremacy, racism, and what could have been plans to allegedly kill more than just members of his family had he not been arrested. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. The story of Nikita Kasap has taken so many turns since his parents were first found dead on February 28th. He was arrested states away in Kansas, allegedly driving his dad's stolen vehicle. But a newly unsealed 35-page federal search warrant may be the development that has shocked us the most since we started following this story. This is Nikita Kasap. You can see him in custody here in his hometown of Waukesha, Wisconsin. This is video from his most recent court appearance last week. He is currently facing 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of hiding a corpse, among other charges. His mom, Tatiana, and his stepdad, Don Mayer, were found shot dead inside their home on February 28th. Deputies say their bodies were covered in blankets. Don's mom had called police to do a wellness check because she hadn't heard from him in weeks. She lives in Massachusetts. A resource officer at Nikita's high school also said that he had been out of class for 2 weeks, and up until that point in the school year, he had perfect attendance. Nikita was nowhere to be found. A neighbor said that he saw the teen drive off in his stepdad's VW Atlas 5 days prior. Then this story takes us on a shocking journey to get us to where we are right now. The authorities ping Nikita's parents' phones, and they show up in Laramie, Wyoming. That is nearly a 15-hour drive from Wisconsin. Then Nikita Kasap's phone was pinged, and it showed up at the world's largest truck stop. That is in Iowa. It's more than 11 hours from Laramie. Kasap was arrested in the tiny town of Waukene, Kansas. Here he is making his first appearance before he was sent back to Wisconsin to face charges.
Is your last name pronounced Kasap?
Kasap.
Kasap? Okay.
He was allegedly driving his dad's VW Atlas, and police say in plain sight was his dad's .357 Smith & Wesson handgun with ammunition. Police then find electronics in the car, including a camera with an SD card. Police say on that SD card were videos of Nikita Kasap lighting candles around his stepdad's dead body at their home in Waukesha, seemingly to cover the scent as it laid there for days. Police think Don and Tatiana were killed on February 11th, meaning Nikita likely lived in that house with his parents' dead bodies for nearly 2 weeks until the neighbor saw him leave on February 23rd. In the recorded video, police say Nikita also seemed to be holding a phone up to Don's body to show someone what he had allegedly done. Let's get to this newly unsealed federal search
What?
warrant, because this story seems now to be far more than allegedly a sad and shocking case of family violence. We've learned that Kasap allegedly killed his parents to get the financial means to kill President Trump, overthrow the US government, and to commit several terrorist attacks. And let's show you what not only just sheriff's deputies in Waukesha, Wisconsin found, but the FBI. The Waukesha County Sheriff's Office looked through Kasap's phone and reportedly found disturbing conversations, some of them in Russian. Some are with people on TikTok, and others on the platform Telegram. That bills itself as a place for free speech, but it is controversial because of the alleged criminal activity that can be on it. The FBI says Kasap had material on his phone related to the Order of the Nine Angles, which the agency says is a network of people with neo-Nazi, racially motivated extremist views. 09A advocates for the use of violence and terrorism to overthrow governments and destroy modern civilization. This is a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children under 21 are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to these outcomes. Morgan & Morgan is stepping in to hold food companies accountable. This is a law firm with a lot of experience in fighting large corporations, and they're ready to step in and help families who deserve justice. So if your child is under 21, has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, go to forthepeople.com/food. You can also scan the QR code on your screen. The warrant says between February 14th and 24th, that was the days after Kasap allegedly killed his parents, he was living with the bodies in the house. And he had messages on Telegram in Russian that said, quote, reply to them all and say you got sick. And another message that said, drag them to the basement. Now, this lines up with what we've learned in our previous reporting on this story through court documents released through the state of Wisconsin. Part of the reason that Don's mom called to have a wellness check done was because of messages she said that she found weird from her son's phone on February 23rd. Also, Don's boss got text messages on February 13th and 25th that Don said he was sick and couldn't talk on the phone. Those are dates after when police say Nikita allegedly killed his parents. Another shocking part of this that we weren't expecting is that allegedly the FBI had already spoken to the Kasap family in November 2023. The document states that federal agents talked to the Kasap family in November 2023, but it's unclear specifically what brought agents to their home. In the newly unsealed document, agents say that Nikita Kasap, who went by the username Awoken on TikTok, had conversations with someone else about the racist ideology, the Order of the Nine Angles, which is also known as 09A. Now, this was in December of last year, roughly 2 months before his parents were murdered. He tells another user that he talked to a girl about that ideology and she was, quote, pretty chill about it. And he said if his parents were to find out, quote, they would take away my phone away if they did, especially since the FBI visited, LOL. We don't know specifically who Nikita Kasap was allegedly talking to on TikTok for those conversations. And again, there's still a lot of specifics we need to find out about why the FBI went to the Kasap house in November 2023. Authorities also found that Kasap talked on Telegram under the username Accelerationist, and on January 21st, which is less than a month before his parents were killed, he was allegedly talking with someone about a terror attack, asking, quote, what country do you think will get the blame for this? With an unknown user replying, Russia will be blamed for it. This is the goal. Nikita then allegedly goes on to say, quote, when the time comes for me to send my manifesto to you so you can spread it online, should it be PDF? And also you won't anyhow change or modify the manifesto. The FBI says they did find a manifesto. It's 3 pages long and talks about killing the president of the United States and creating a political revolution and to, quote, save the white race from, quote, Jewish-controlled politicians, with the final page having images and words praising Adolf Hitler. The FBI only included excerpts of the document, but Kasap allegedly seems very focused on President Trump. Quote, as to why specifically Trump, I think it's obvious. By getting rid of the president and perhaps the vice president, that is guaranteed to bring in some chaos. And not only that, but it will further bring into the public the idea that assassinations and accelerating the collapse are possible things to do. Kassab would later allegedly write, quote, "As a side note, the other attacks that may occur, I have no idea what they are, who they target. I have no idea even if they are same ideology as I. Point being, the manifesto is specifically for the attack that targets Trump." When Kassab was arrested in Kansas, not only did police say that they found the gun, the ammunition that was allegedly used to kill his parents, and that camera that had that SD card. Police say he also had a pried open safe, women's jewelry, and $14,000 in cash, as well as banking documents. It appears that Kassab allegedly wanted to use that money, which he was able to obtain by allegedly killing his parents, to buy a drone that he would use in a terror attack. In another Telegram conversation, Kassab speaks with user Angel of Death about a drone with a dropping mechanism. Kassab allegedly asks about caring for a drone, and the user tells him that the amount would cost between $1,200 and $1,500. They also allegedly talk about an IED, or improvised explosive device. Kassab also allegedly
Clip guy, salute. Hassan Tyree Show, salute. 40 Jamie Rose, what up? Yeah. So for those tuning in, this is the team who murdered his parents in a plot to raise funds to kill President Trump. This is one extreme case of brainwashed, and just lost innocence. These the parents, I'm pretty sure, might have been some good people. Who knows? They could have been trash. Who knows, man? But this is real scandalous. Let's get back to the Law Crime Network. Teen murdered parents in extremist plot to kill President Trump. FBI. Salute to the chat.
allegedly asked for headphones that could protect his ears from the sound of a .357 Magnum. That is the gun he allegedly used to kill his mom and stepdad inside their home in Wisconsin. It is important to note that Kassab allegedly talks about paying in Bitcoin because in previous court appearances, state prosecutors have said that he stopped at a Bitcoin vending machine on his multi-state drive after allegedly killing his parents. The reason that Nikita drove west after allegedly killing his parents also seems to have come from orders that it appears he received from some user on Telegram. Kassab allegedly spoke with someone who writes in an Eastern European dialect that gave him coordinates to drive from southwest Wyoming through Kansas to a location near Oklahoma, and Kassab allegedly asked, quote, "Then from there to Eureka, California, it is 30 hours. You think I'll have enough time?" Kassab allegedly asked questions like, "How long will I need to hide before I will be moved to Ukraine? Also, I probably should brush up on my Russian because I can understand just fine, but speaking is harder. And so while in Ukraine, I will get a normal job and have a normal life, even when it's found out I did it." He also asks, do the 10 other people have similar beliefs to I, or are they different? And there's a message that cuts off that says, assuming that my parents won't leave. We don't know how that message ends. But the 10 other people part is notable because the deputies in Wisconsin spoke with a female classmate of Kassab's at Waukesha West High School, where, just to note, he was once student of the month, who said Kassab told her about his alleged plans, saying that if they saw 10 consecutive attacks in the news, it would have been him. That witness also told authorities that Kassab would talk about being in contact with a man in Russia, about overthrowing the US government, and that he intended to kill his parents by shooting them but didn't have access to a gun. She then said Kassab regularly sent her videos of what he called gore edits that were videos with Russian music on Snapchat that flashed gory and war images. Prior to this newly released federal search warrant, we knew that Kassab allegedly talked to his classmate about a desire to kill President Trump and that he had an infatuation with fascism and Adolf Hitler. But this is the first time we are hearing that authorities believe that is the alleged motive in the deaths of Tatiana Kassab and his stepdad, Don Mayer. And it is the most detailed timeline to this point of the lengths that Kassab allegedly went to be part of what he at least thought was a large plan to commit mass terror in the United States. Joining us now is retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt. Thanks for being here on Law and Crime. There's a lot to unpack in these newly unsealed documents that came out showing what investigators know at this point about what Nikita Kassab is alleged to have done. You're the person, you're the expert on this. I mean, what stood out to you going through these new documents and what's come to light?
Well, I would just say that kind of the extent of the psychosis, or how deeply violent this person is, and always kind of look, what were there signs of this before he murdered his parents, or if that is indeed the case, as is he's alleged, or he's accused of doing that, what led up to this? And then what is his obsession with President Trump? His level of violence and his level of hatred, there's got to be some sort of antecedent that prompted all of this nonsense, this craziness, frankly.
What do you know about Telegram? And I know he was talking on TikTok, which a lot of people know, and was sending some disturbing videos on Snapchat to a female classmate who he seemed to confide in a lot. But Telegram is where he seemed to have talked to some very shady people, some of them in Russian. What do we know about that platform?
Well, that platform, I think recently, as of about 6 months ago, the FBI got involved with kind of taking it down, or looking at the person who created it. And it's an app that a lot of fringe groups go on to, and they kind of push their agenda and their narrative through this app. And it's very attractive because it does have that same encryption capability, but it's kind of gone mainstream with the fringe on either side of the political spectrum in terms of the things that are appearing on there. And frankly, I don't let my own children get on that app.
No, I mean, there is a lot in looking at this story. If you're a parent, that's just terrifying, whether it's of a young boy or a young girl, whoever it may be, because of it just seemed how deep he was into dark corners of the internet that a lot of us are typically not on. This Order of the Nine Angles, it's a neo-Nazi ideology that apparently he was very into. Do you know anything about that? How common is that type of ideology in your experience in dealing with these cases?
Well, first, last point on Telegram, it doesn't appear they have moderators. Like if you go on even TikTok or Twitter or the other ones, they have people who are actually watching, or algorithms watching for this fringe and violent behavior. And in terms of this neo-Nazi group, I did work skinhead neo-Nazi cases many years ago when I was in the FBI. And it's generally speaking, it's a lot of disenfranchised people who kind of coalesce around an idea of hate. And then they basically wind each other up with this constant banter of hating a particular group or a particular religion. And that gives them their sort of shared purpose.
And it seemed like, the term radicalization comes to mind as I was reading through some of the conversations he was having. I was thinking of the cases where we've seen an ISIS-inspired attack, where young man gets in touch with someone who they don't know personally on social media, who then gets them to commit this attack. It seems very similar, though a different type of ideology. What did you see as you looked at some of the conversations that Nikita Kassab was allegedly having with people, in some cases in Russian, on social media?
Well, generally speaking, these groups somebody in this group will kind of rise above and will be kind of the antecedent, the person that's kind of initiating a lot of this conversation, and for lack of a better term, the leader on the chat. And then that's the person that's generally radicalizing the other people that are jumping on the chat. Or there might be 2 or 3 people that are kind of in that role, or they're sharing that role. And then the fact that this is being done with Russian speakers or in Russia, they may be some sort of a state actor behind this or something else.
Yeah, I think he just got sucked in. I think he had too much time on his hands and wind up getting sucked into a plot that he really, has no business even around. Clearly, this was a orchestrated move. He was just a straw man. Subscribe to Law and Crime Network.
Else that's trying to kind of foster discontent and chaos in the United States. I doubt it, though. It just sounds like Russia has the same problems that we have in terms of disenfranchised youth that have no purpose. So the point of this is, I think he was the one, certainly had the weakest mind, but he had the greatest means to kind of carry out violence in support of this ideology.
How likely is it that we'll find out who he was talking to on Telegram?
Well, I believe that they'll be able to kind of get to the bottom of it. But the problem with Telegram is it is a worldwide app, and many people use VPNs, virtual private networks, or they're going to coffee houses or going to all these other places. So it ends up being a real digital whodunit to kind of get to the source of the information, or they're using other kind of proxy servers to kind of hide who they are. This is the same problem that they're having with swatting when the swatting comes from a foreign country to a person in the United States, is getting to the root of the problem. Now, if the whole thing was in the United States, I'm quite confident the FBI could find where it originated from, but it appears that most of this is happening overseas, so there may be many dead ends.
In your experience, how does someone, a young kid like this, 17 years old, and apparently for a couple years he was having these very disturbing conversations online, allegedly, how does it start for a lot of these people, where if you're a parent, you give your kid a phone, they have access to the computer thinking that they're going to play some video game, and then eventually they're down the line communicating with someone overseas about a terrorist attack and actually getting him allegedly to buy a drone, go to these lengths. I mean, even allegedly kill his own parents, which this story just seems so bizarre in that way. But we know that these types of cases have happened in the past.
Well, I think a couple of different ways, just speculating though, the people who are behind this group, they're probably trolling the internet for people like himself that are out there looking for this kind of information, and they might put something in the water in terms of their ideology and then see if they get any bites. And then once that person gets a bite, or once that person kind of starts to interact, then they start grooming them and talking to them and basically making them feel like somebody cares and somebody is interested in what they have to say. And then it continues to escalate until we get to the point of violence, or law enforcement or the parents find out about it and stop it.
Seemed like at the state level that there's a very strong case, very serious charges where he's accused of shooting and killing both his parents. He was arrested in Kansas. The gun that was allegedly used in those shootings was found in the vehicle. Seems like there's a strong case there for the state. When you look at what the FBI and local deputies as well, and going through the electronic devices and what charges could he face at a federal level, and how strong is the evidence that it appears that federal authorities could have in that situation?
Well, without having the whole case in front of me, I'd certainly speculating, but it sounds like they have all the chats and all of the, and maybe even have a statement from him where he described what he was doing or wanted to do, or his intent. They could charge him with weapons of mass destruction, conspiracy to kill the president, as well as they could actually federalize the fact that he went over state lines, depending on who or what was behind his intent to kill his parents. So he's definitely going to be seeing a very long time in prison. But even more importantly, the biggest reason why the FBI is involved is to determine if there's anybody else behind this, especially somebody local or in the United States that has the means to do this. Because when you start talking about drones and aerial assaults, then obviously that gets the attention of not only the FBI, but the Secret Service and even the military, because their number one job is to protect the president and the United States.
Of course, President Trump, 2 attempts on his life before he took office for a second term. Many people will never forget Butler, Pennsylvania, specifically, and what happened there. Knowing that this was a 17-year-old who, ends up driving to Kansas. How does the FBI knowing that these types of conversations unfortunately happen a lot on places like Telegram, know which ones are the specific person who's going to go to a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania and try to take a shot on the president, or someone who in high school just has what they believe is an incredibly twisted sense of humor or interest, and it's something that's just words.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head. Is it just words? You know, that you really don't know you can't read people's minds. All you can do is rely on their own speech and behaviors and then what they've said to the people around them. So when somebody does put something crazy, frankly, out on the internet, the FBI is very aggressive in going out and, number one, interviewing the person who did it, interview the people around, and then perhaps go to their house. If they have the probable cause and the authority, search the house, see if they have the means to do the things that they put out on the internet. And then most importantly is to get that person either prosecuted or get some sort of mental health intervention so they don't harm themselves or somebody else.
Are we seeing more of these cases, or is it a situation where, because in the world of social media, you're almost able to detect more of these types of ideologies of spreading, because then you can tie it to a defendant like they apparently are in this case?
Well, I think you're seeing more of it because there's a mitigated or minimized social friction. When I say that, it's much easier to communicate online with strangers. You know, like I tell my kids, and everybody says, don't talk to strangers. Well, people are talking to strangers all the time on the internet. And really, the American youth, or the youth in the world, is kind of programmed to kind of interact on the internet, and that sets up a opportunity for these bad actors to manipulate these kids because they're not very sophisticated. So I think the problem is amplified by social media in a sense that you're hearing more about it, but it's also amplified because there's so little friction in terms of social friction and giving these kids opportunities to communicate with bad people.
Yeah, and look, this isn't a political show, and I certainly don't want to, like, have it go in that direction. But just when you look at him targeting President Trump, and then apparently he was talking to someone in Ukraine about blaming Russia for what was going to happen, and then it's a neo-Nazi, ideology, and then it's a pro Adolf Hitler. I mean, it just seems like it is just, how do you, when you deal with these cases, how do people make sense of this political ideology? Because it seems like when you try to think about how someone goes down this path, it's on a completely different universe than what typical political discussions are in the day-to-day between normal people.
Well, I think it's kind of a greater issue where, with lack of a better term, you have politicians that are influencers, and they influence the public, and everybody needs to bring the rhetoric down or be careful about what they're saying, because unfortunately there are quite a few people out there with deep-rooted mental health issues, and depending on what somebody may or may not say or how they're saying it, that might be the spark to get this person to take it to the next level. So it just makes the law enforcement's job much harder when they have to go out and follow up on these things, because there's so many issues like this. And so to your question, though, it comes down to everybody has to kind of just bring it down a notch, and also see something, say something. If somebody is acting erratically or doing something that you would be concerned about in terms of harming themselves or somebody else, make sure the authorities are aware of it.
And I know it would be speculation, but there was part in the document that said the FBI had spoke to the family in November 2023. It's not really clear what they were talking about at that point, but just generally speaking, how common is it for the FBI to talk to a family, to have those conversations if they believe that something disturbing was happening in school? Apparently, he had discussions with a witness, a woman who's been identified as a witness, a female classmate. But I guess, how common is it for the FBI to be having those conversations with students, finding nothing, and then continuing on?
Well, it comes out there's a credible complaint, and it goes in terms of this type of behavior. Generally, the FBI will go out with local law enforcement and find out, is there any substance to the complaint? People also got to remember, it's not a magic pill or there's some sort of magic here. There is probable cause. There is the Constitution. You can't just, go out there. The FBI is not the office of pre-crime and be able to predict things that are going to happen in the future. And then they have to do a investigation to determine if this person has the intent and the means to go ahead and harm somebody. So to once again answer your question, how common is it? I mean, I can't really say. It comes down to, if the complaint is out there, the FBI will follow up on it, but there's only so much they can do.
And just lastly, we talk about, the mental health issues, and, this was a young man who, up until this point in the school year that he disappeared after allegedly killing his parents, he had perfect attendance. He was a student of the month back in 2022. Seemed like on the surface that this is a kid who was what you would expect a kid at 17 years old to be, who goes to a public school outside of Milwaukee. But we do see these cases, and there's kind of this growing stereotype of the young man who is able to become radicalized no matter what the influence may be. What is it about kind of young teens that makes them vulnerable to situations like this, where this clearly could have been a lot worse had he not been arrested?
Well, as a father of young teens, it comes down to two different things.
Yeah, for those tuning in, this teen got caught up in some online cult and decided that they were going to go out and attempt to assassinate the president. It's a very eerie case. As you can see, the mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Things, access to the internet and isolation. So if you have a child that's in his room right after school until he goes to bed, and all he is playing on the internet that you think of, and you're not monitoring what he's doing or his communications, and he's isolating himself from other people, from actual social interaction where he actually sees people, then that's the time for somebody to kind of pay attention and say, okay, who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Why are you talking about this? And frankly, get off the computer and get out there. And as my kids say, put some grass under your feet and get some fresh air and some sunshine and interact with people out in the real world, and stop all this internet nonsense.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because this is a story. We'll see how it plays out. Is there a possibility that I guess, how does this work out legally now, knowing that the FBI is involved, that there are serious charges? If he would be facing, a federal charge of a threat on the president's life, but then also at the state level is facing these charges of allegedly killing his parents?
Well, that'll be where the federal prosecutors and the state prosecutors will work out how they want to proceed. Generally speaking, the murder is going to take precedence, or the murder is going to take precedence. And then if he is found guilty of that, and then the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office or the federal criminal justice system will take over, and then he would be prosecuted on the federal charges. But he's going to end up doing his time in state court, and unless there's some sort of deal or some sort of reason to put him in federal prison. But once again, it's going to be something that's worked out between the federal and state prosecutors.
All right, retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt, always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Kassab is currently being held on $1 million bond for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
Imagine a story set in the golden landscape of Del Mar, California, that could rival any dramatic film. Central to this tale is Tatiana Remley, whose passion for horses leads her to a fate.
Salute shot to everybody tuning in. Yeah, that kid was definitely disturbed. Definitely a disturbed individual. It's happening more and more every day with these characters. Let's go to Law and Crime Network. Teacher stabbed husband to death, then kept working. Subscribe to Law and Crime Network.
Tell me exactly what happened. I came into my room and my husband, I think he died. I think he's on the floor. I mean, I know he's on the floor. I think he's dead.
It sounds like a 911 call from a loving wife who claimed she just found her husband dead on their bedroom floor.
No, Robert, no, babe, no. Please don't do this to me. No.
But even though publicly these newlyweds appeared to be in the honeymoon phase, police now say this death was a murder. And what we found even more shocking, even though police seemed suspicious of this third grade teacher's story from the very beginning, her school tells us she continued to teach children until just this month, 5 years later, when she was arrested for murder. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Police in New Mexico just made the arrest of a woman in connection to the death of her husband in 2020. And even though at the time she played the role, allegedly, of the mourning wife who found her husband dead on the floor and didn't know what happened, police seem suspicious of her story from the very beginning. This is Heather Fernandez Hofer. She's a third grade teacher at McCormick Elementary. It's a public school in Farmington, New Mexico. According to Facebook, on September 5th, 2020, she married Robert Hofer. Here's a picture of the two on their wedding day. They got hitched at the local VFW. Robert served in the Navy for 9 years after high school. He went on to work on nuclear submarines, went on to graduate college in 2012, and appears to most recently have worked as a computer technician at the local library in Farmington. This couple seemed to really be in love. Robert wrote on social media, quote, "I married the most compassionate and kind woman I have ever met today. Truly a lovely and caring woman. I also gained a grandson and 3 amazing stepsons. I am a very happy man." And Heather made sure to comment with a sticker that said, "Love you." But then came a 911 call on November 29th, 2020, not even 3 months after the day they said, "I do."
911, what is the address of your emergency? Tell me exactly what happened. I came into my room and my husband, I think he died. I think he's on the floor. I mean, I know he's on the floor. I think he's dead. Come on, honey, wake up. He's cold. He's cold.
Heather called 911 around 5:30 in the morning, claiming she made a horrifying discovery in her house. Robert was dead on the floor.
Do you think he's beyond any help?
Yeah, I do. I do. Come on, babe, wake up, babe.
My partner
Babe, wake
is
up.
sending someone to assist you. Please let
Honey,
me
wake
leave
up. Honey,
everything
wake
as
up.
you found it. I'm going to stay on the line with you until they get there, okay?
He's dead. He's dead. Babe, wake up. Babe, wake up.
What is your name?
Wake up. Hold on, I can't hear you. Hold on, let me put you on speaker.
No, you're fine.
Babe, come on. Come on. Come on, babe, wake up.
If you want, ma'am.
Yes.
If you want to try, I can give you CPR instructions.
No.
But if you think he's beyond any help,
send somebody now.
Ma'am,
Hurry.
they're on their way. What is your name?
Heather Hofer.
Heather. They are headed that way, and I'm going to stay on the line with you until they get there, okay?
Okay.
You might have picked up on this in listening to that. Between the cries of "Babe, wake up" by Heather, the dispatcher asks if she thinks her husband is beyond needing help, if he's dead, to which she directly says yes. And then she's asked if she wants to try CPR, and Heather says no. This is one of the first suspicious parts of Heather's story. The dispatcher then starts asking about what might have happened.
Has he been sick?
Well, he injured himself.
When was this?
This evening.
How did he injure himself?
He got mad. Babe, come on, babe, wake up, babe.
How did he injure himself?
He cut himself.
How did he cut himself?
Listen to me. Babe, wake up, honey, please wake up. Honey, please wake up. You can't do this to me.
Heather, if you think he's gone and there's no help, I need for you to walk out of that room and leave him alone, especially if you think this is going to be a. Are you telling me that?
As you can hear, this is already sounding very suspicious. Viewer discretion is advised. This is very, very, very eerie.
This is a suicide now? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. All right.
What stood out to me there is the change in tone, the crying for her husband to be okay, mixed in with very direct responses about the narrative of what she says happened. She claimed that Robert got injured. He cut himself with a knife and then got mad. And she knows specifics to the story, but only reveals so much.
Don't do this to me. Stop. Oh. Oh. Hurry. Heather, they're coming. They're coming as fast as they can. I know it seems like it's a really long time, but they are coming. We have to hurry. Please tell them to hurry. My partner is Heather. Where did he cut himself at? Did he do that before he went to sleep or after you went to sleep? Before he went to sleep. And did you know he had done that? I didn't think we had that. I didn't think we had that. Heather, I'm here with you until they get there. I'm the one that's staying with you until they get there.
About 9 minutes after Heather calls 911, police arrive. For as emotional and as heartbreaking as this phone call was, a wife who just lost her husband, police found Heather's story to be inconsistent from the beginning, according to the arrest affidavit that we have. Detectives say as soon as they started talking to Heather about her story, it changed from what she told the dispatcher in that phone call you just heard. You might remember she said on that 911 call that Robert injured himself with a knife the night before. But to police officers just a short time later in person, she reportedly said she didn't know how Robert died and suggested that he could have cut himself with a razor or maybe he overdosed on pills. She then said he had cut himself with a steak knife. Heather then allegedly tells officers that the night before, she and Robert were in their computer room. Robert asked Heather to warm up a pie as he played video games. Detectives write that Heather suggested that Robert may have stabbed himself while she was in the kitchen and she wasn't looking. Heather claimed that Robert didn't complain when he ate the pie, but only when they went to bed later. He talked about some pain in his chest. She said she then cleaned Robert's body before they went to sleep, but she went to sleep in another room on a couch. Not only was Heather allegedly unsure of the time that she noticed her husband's injuries, she said she didn't think they were that bad because she didn't think his wounds were, quote, that deep. And why did Heather not allegedly sleep in the same bed as her husband? She accused Robert of, quote, wetting the bed. Police also note that they thought Heather's demeanor was strange for someone claiming that they had just found their husband dead on the floor because she talked about her husband wetting the bed, but at the same time, she was allegedly laughing and smiling. A key piece of evidence is a knife block that Heather had in the kitchen of their house. Police say she showed them that all of the steak knives were there. Police found it suspicious that Robert would stab himself with a steak knife, then return it to the knife block in the kitchen, all while his wife was preparing him that pie and that she wouldn't notice. It's another major red flag allegedly in this story. Police also point to evidence that suggests that Robert was stabbed in the couple's bed and not on the floor as Heather claims to have found him. Most of the blood was located on the bed itself, and the washing of the body that she allegedly said she did prior to his death, police think that that happened after Robert died. Let's go back to this couple's relationship, because again, on Facebook, it seemed like they were in true bliss. They had been married just a couple of months. Everything was great. Heather, in fact, told police that the two never argued. But as police looked further into cell phone data and spoke to one of their neighbors, it seems like there's more to that story. Police say they spoke to a neighbor who told them between 3 and 4 in the morning, she heard yelling inside the home. It was unclear what the couple was talking about, according to this neighbor. Then police looked through cell phone data. Police say the data showed them that the couple had a recent argument concerning money. Robert was unemployed and Heather was the sole provider. On top of Robert, Heather also said she was allegedly footing the bill for her son, his future wife, and their 2 small grandchildren, who she claimed were in the house the night that Robert died. An autopsy showed 3 stab wounds to the chest killed Robert. Heather may have claimed that she didn't think his wounds were that deep, but according to the medical examiner, they broke through the chest cavity. Police say the injuries were the kind that someone would have noticed. Police also say when they confronted Heather about how her story or stories just didn't add up, she invoked her right to remain silent and said she wouldn't answer any more questions until she had a lawyer. Robert died November 2020. Heather was just arrested April 1st, 2025. Given the amount of evidence in this affidavit that police seem to have from the very beginning, it is unclear what took 5 years for police to make an arrest. Heather's a 3rd grade teacher at McCormick Elementary, which is a public school in Farmington, New Mexico. In fact, she lives right behind the school, according to Google Maps. We searched for her name in the school directory and nothing came up. But I also reached out to the school district to see if she had continued to teach in the years after her husband's death, even though.
As you can see, another school teacher, another disturbing school teacher. Man, these school teachers are something else, man. And I mean something else. This is fucking crazy. Subscribe to Law and Crown Network. On the case.
She hadn't been charged. When you read the police affidavit, it does appear that she was suspected from the very beginning, or at least the story didn't add up. It seems suspicious, according to police. Heather posted pictures on Facebook in the years after Robert's death, including one where it appears she's in a classroom. It's also important to note that she did change her relationship status to single. And we wanted to know if she had been teaching elementary school kids for 5 years since her husband was allegedly murdered. I reached out to the Farmington Municipal School District, and their spokesperson tells me she's now on administrative leave, and she was actively teaching until April 1st. That is the day of her arrest this year. The district said they had no idea she was ever being investigated or considered a suspect in her husband's alleged murder. New Mexico court records show that Heather Fernandez Hover is facing charges of 2nd-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Joining us now to dive into this case is retired Detective Commander Will Svilar. Thank you for taking the time to be with us, as always, on Law and Crime. You listen to the 911 call, you read through the police, the arrest report, and it just seems like police were very suspicious of this woman from the very beginning in 2020. She's not arrested until 2025. Why did it take so long?
There's a lot of factors that are involved with making the arrest. One is when the medical examiner first made a determination as the cause of manner of death, the cause of death was clear, multiple stab wounds. The manner of death was undetermined. You cannot charge somebody with a crime unless somebody says it's a crime. And until the medical examiner says it's a homicide, you can't make the charge. And in this case, there was evidence, but there wasn't a lot of direct evidence that couldn't be explained away from the way she tried to explain how she found the body. So you're building a circumstantial case, and that takes a lot longer than a case where direct evidence is involved.
What do you think was the piece that detectives were waiting on to say that she is a suspect in this murder?
So when you're building a circumstantial case, it's not one piece that does it. It's like I say, it's a puzzle. You're putting together a puzzle. You start with the corners, and then you finally get the final part. Now, when you read the affidavit for arrest, they explained every detail as to why her story made absolutely no sense, from the conflicting accounts that she gave of how the incident happened, to the ridiculous 911 call, down to the blood evidence. And it takes a while to do that. And I'm not going to say that this was their first try to get it approved either by a judge. They may have got it kicked back a few times, and they had to put more detail into how you're making this a homicide, a murder.
Let's dive into this 911 call because there's a lot of parts of it, knowing now, and you do listen to it in hindsight, knowing that she's been she's been charged. But what sticks out to you that would have had your radar going off if you were investigating this case in 2020?
So if you're listening to the 911 call, initially she makes a report about her husband's she's on the ground. He's not responsive. He's cold. Now she's trying to tell him, wake up, wake up, wake up. The dispatcher says, would you want to do CPR? Is he beyond CPR? Nope, no CPR. He's cold. Is he beyond help? Yes, he's beyond help. Then she tells her, listen, get out of the room. If you think he's beyond help, get out of the room. Nope, she's staying there trying to talk to the guy and then trying to bring in the fact that, oh, wait a minute, I do remember he did, hurt himself. And then they had to pull the information out of where you're saying it's a suicide. And it's just the whole ridiculous nature of that call would immediately, you'd have to look at her. And then you look at the physical evidence too. And, part of that call was he had some pie heated up at 3 o'clock. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't the call, but it was an interview later. Yeah. Where she said, well, he heated up some pie and he had some pie and, it's hard to do with 3 stab wounds.
Well, and these were two. I mean, I know she had said initially, Heather Fernandez, that she didn't know that his stab wounds, whatever they had, that they were that deep. But then the medical examiner finds that, they broke through the chest cavity. And that just stood out to me, to have 3 stab wounds. Could someone even do that to themselves? To do that 3 times and then eat pie like it's no big deal and then sit down and go to bed like it's a regular night and just complain of a little chest pain?
Get washed off and the whole 9 yards, put the knife back in the knife block. No, you're talking about each 2 of the stab wounds collapsed each lung.
Right.
And the other severed an artery, severed, I think it might've been the aortic artery, whichever one they decided. You're not surviving any of that for the most part. And you're certainly not going to sit down and have pie.
Well, and the way that the detectives talked about it too, I will also say, the fact that she talked about the way it was described, that she washed him off before bed. I had to read that a couple of times to make sure I was reading it correctly. It just seemed like a very bizarre, people may do that, but a very bizarre detail of events. And it seemed like police were just very suspicious of her, especially when she talked about him wetting the bed, and then she was laughing as she was saying it. If you were interviewing her, how in those moments when someone, your radar starts going off that this is a suspect, this is not what they're saying happened allegedly, how do you handle that? What are the questions you ask to try to get to the point where they might, and she didn't in this case it appears, but confess to what actually happened? So in a situation like this, where you're initially starting as an interview, it's not adversarial. You're doing an interview. Hey, what happened? Now you start suspecting, maybe they make a statement that doesn't make sense to you, or you start to suspect, this person's an offender. You have to stop them. You have to advise Miranda at that point, because now your questions after that become adversarial. One of the things I would say to her like that, if she kept talking, is you let them talk. You let them keep saying what they're going to say. It's ridiculous. And then you'll go back at him and say, well, you know what? Help me understand how he heated up pie and then stabbed himself and then put the knife back in the block, but you didn't see it and you were right next to him. I don't understand. Could you explain that to me? And you just let them, dig themselves deeper and deeper. It's someone's right to say that they want to speak with a lawyer present and to no longer answer questions if they haven't been charged from police. And we have a lot of defense attorneys that'll come on and say, anytime someone gets arrested, you should talk to a lawyer before you talk to the police. But as someone who has investigated these crimes, when someone invokes that right, what does that tell you? Do you ever look at it and say, well, that's just their right, okay? But it just seems like she cut off the conversation at that point that detectives were saying all of this doesn't add up. Right. At the point where she realized that at this point, wait a minute, they're obviously not buying this. I can't say anymore. I've already dug a deep enough hole. Now, people would come in all the time and you advise them and they lawyer up immediately. And that's all part of it. But what I've found is if somebody doesn't lawyer up right away, they want to tell you something. Now, it's not initially going to be the true story, but if they don't lawyer up immediately, they want to tell you something. So you have to keep them talking. Again, as soon as they ask for a lawyer or, say that they want to do Miranda or they want to exercise their rights, you have to stop. Let's talk a little bit about the blood that they talked about in this case, because they say a lot of the police say a lot of the blood was found in the bed. He's found on the floor. She did admit to rolling him over. So he's found on his back. What would, had that actually happened, and he stabbed himself, he dies in the room. She wasn't there. She says she was sleeping in another room. What would detectives actually seen in that case compared to what they found in this situation with her story?
Well, if he gets out of bed, if he's struggling and he gets out of bed and he falls out and dies on the floor, there's two ways that blood comes out of your body. If you're alive, you're bleeding because your heart's pumping. If you're dead, you're leaking. So when you're bleeding, a majority of the blood, like in this case, was going to be found in the bed where she stabbed him while he was laying on his back. And the rest of it, when it was on the floor, was leaking. So you're not going to have that intense volume of being the blood pumped out of your body by your heart. So he was bleeding in the bed and he was leaking on the ground.
There's another piece of evidence with that, which is the knife block in this steak knife that apparently is what police believe allegedly was the murder weapon that she used. It was washed off, but there.
Yeah, as you can see, she definitely premeditated this. Those some brutal weapons to use to get onto somebody, butcher knives, steak knives, and all this kind of stuff. She's definitely into it.
There were trace amounts of blood on it. How difficult is it to actually clean? Because you do hear this a lot. We were talking about one just last week where people find a knife and it looks clean, but then there's trace amounts of blood on it. How difficult is it to actually get blood off of a knife if you're trying to hide it from police?
Unless you take the handle off the knife, like knock the rivets out and take the handle off, blood's going to get in behind that. And it's nearly impossible to get rid of all of it. Now you can, but it's nearly impossible. We've had scenes not only on knives, but on, say, a floor where people will bleach and wash the floor, but we take a floorboard or the trim piece off and there's blood behind it. So she would have had to knock the rivets out of the knife and wash the handle down and then reassembled it to get all the blood evidence off. The problem with that is if it's a steak knife in your house that you use to cut up meat, there's a defense in there saying, you know what, he cut himself using that knife before. And
I also think of the fact that she was still teaching for 5 years. And we talk about this was a 2020 murder. She was just arrested in 2025, just on April 1st. And I reached out to the school district. We were talking about it. What's her status now? How long has she been teaching? And did you know that she was a suspect in the murder? Because I think in Farmington, New Mexico, I mean, it's a small town. And maybe people thought that her husband tragically passed away. Maybe there were rumors around it, but I just find it shocking that she actually went to school every day teaching young kids for 5 years.
Can you imagine if that was your kids in that school and you had a general idea of what happened? So I can't tell you how many times that I've walked people out the door knowing full well that person committed a murder. It happens all the time, but you keep building your case until you can bring them back in. And now we operate under the justice system that we operate under. There are rights in place, there's checks and balances, and everybody's afforded those rights. And if you don't have enough evidence to bring a charge, you can't just hold people.
Would you, though, knowing that she was going to a school, and with how suspicious it just seemed from the very beginning, that it might have been circumstantial at that time, but there's just parts that don't add up to this story, that is she being watched? Is she being monitored? Like, how do you handle that situation knowing that she's going to a school?
So this is obviously domestic murder.
Right.
You don't, and again, and I don't want to paint everything with a broad brush, but in a domestic murder, it's usually the victim in the household. So is the community in immediate danger? Maybe not, probably not. Again, you don't want to assume anything, but you only have so many resources to put on this lady for 5 years to watch her every move. And it does borderline on an infringement of her rights if you did that.
Yeah. It's shocking that she went, and you look at her Facebook page. I mean, she was regularly posting. She looks like a third grade teacher. And that's what she was. Couple more pieces of information I just wanted to run by you. They were apparently having, publicly, they looked perfect. They had just gotten married. Privately, they were having disputes over money. How common in your career is that the smoking gun where you realize that there was something going on here and there is a motive for this person to maybe in the moment get angry and, in this case, allegedly kill the person they married just a couple months prior?
It's very common. And this is why you see a second-degree murder charge and not a first-degree murder charge. Second-degree murder in Illinois is sudden and intense passion. Premeditated murder is with malice aforethought. That's first degree. Second-degree murder is sudden, intense passion. And you see that frequently in domestic murders. And it's, there's many factors. There's financial factors, there's infidelity, there's abuse, there's many factors that go into the motive of committing a murder on a spouse. And in this situation where you bring charges is, if not her, then who? It's not the two kids sleeping in the other room, the infant and the toddler. And it's not that it happened hours prior, he was dead within minutes. So if not her, then who, which is also part of your puzzle.
And just lastly, I just think of if she is found guilty and all of this is true, she will have a trial and innocent. She's innocent until proven guilty. But I think of someone, if it's found guilty, that yes, maybe in the moment, sudden passion, it happened. But then to try to cover it up and have this phone call with 911 where you're still kind of calm in a way as you're giving your narrative of no, I don't want to do CPR. No, I think he's gone. Then police find it weird that you're like laughing during a police interview. And then you go to school for 5 years as a third grade teacher. And someone who would commit murder, it's someone you can't really reason with. But for you as someone who has been in the same room as people who've done some pretty horrible things, what type of profile of a person could we be talking about here?
So again, everybody gets angry. Sudden and intense passion is a real thing. But the thing, like you said, and they added the charge of tampering with the evidence, is this is a person that did a horrible thing and now thinks the only thing that kicks into their head is self-preservation. How can I make this so I'm not going to jail forever? Oh, I know. I'll make up a ridiculous story and I'll try to explain my way out of it, which I cannot do. And that's when they lawyer up. But, it's not like this is a person that's looking not to commit murders. This is a murder that happens in domestic murder. And now they realize this is not good. I have to try to explain myself and I'm going to get on top of it right away. And it rarely works out.
Yeah. And, we'll see how this trial plays out. But to think that this was a 2020 murder and 5 years later, she is under arrest. We'll see how it plays out. Retired Detective Commander Will Svilar, it is always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Take care.
Court documents also show that Heather Fernandez Hofer will next be in court on May 14th. That will be for a preliminary hearing. For On the Case presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
For those tuning in, that was an eerie case. We got another situation. I believe this is in Florida. I forgot the state. Married assistant principal, nicknamed student, Sexy Chocolate. Subscribe to Law and Crime Network.
And she promptly took her feet out of her stinky shoes and put them in his lap.
A married middle school assistant principal has been arrested for reportedly telling a 13-year-old student to, quote, rub my feet like you love me.
As he's massaging her feet, she says, you're not doing it right. And she starts massaging his arm and shoulder and says, do it like that.
According to deputies, Dr. Kiva Lark allegedly called the student Sexy Chocolate and said the foot rub was supposed to teach him sexual foreplay. Now, this is a grown woman, an educator, allegedly talking to a child like this. I'm Kennedy Walker, and I'll walk you through the details and break down how she got caught. For this story, we go to Poinciana, Florida, about an hour away from Orlando, where a middle school assistant principal is facing disturbing allegations involving a 13-year-old student. Her name is Dr. Kiva Lark. She's married, respected, and in a position of power at Lake Marion Creek Middle School. According to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, a male student was sent to Lark's office for throwing balled up paper during a test. But what happened next wasn't discipline. It was alleged bad behavior that would lead to her arrest. Witnesses and the student say Lark told the teen to rub her feet since, quote, he didn't have anything better to do with his hands. Here's what the Polk County Sheriff says happens next.
She promptly took her feet out of her stinky shoes and put them in his lap. And as he's massaging her feet, she says, "You're not doing it right." And she starts massaging his arm and shoulder and says, "Do it like that."
Then it reportedly escalated. Lark was heard saying, quote, "Rub my feet like you love me." According to deputies, she told the student all those things so he'd know what foreplay was when he got a girlfriend. Let that sink in. A 13-year-old child in the assistant principal's office being told to perform what authorities say was an inappropriate act. Several days later, a witness says Lark expressed regret, admitting she crossed the line. But by then, the damage had already been done. On April 5th, the school principal reported the incident to authorities, and the deeper investigators looked, the more they found. The teen told deputies Lark had also called him sexy chocolate in the hallway. When questioned, Sheriff Grady Judd said Lark called the foot rubbing a joke, claiming she was trying to humble the student. She's now facing 2 serious charges, lewd conduct and a lewd offense against a student by an authority figure. Authorities say Dr. Lark later admitted that her actions were inappropriate for her profession, but she denied saying anything inappropriate to the victim. Dr. Kiva Clark is now on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. And joining me to talk more about this is legal expert and author of the novel Open Bar, which is coming out this August, Dan Shore. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's dive right in. Can you explain the charges? What exactly is lewd conduct?
Well, in this case, the allegations are that this assistant principal at a school who is in her 50s, I believe, had a student who is being brought to her office as part of some disciplinary response, had this student, this male student who was 13 years old, massage her feet and made other sexualized comments to her. And there seemed to be, from what law enforcement says, at least 2 other witnesses to this. So a lot of times we have these kinds of cases and it's just the word of the alleged victim. And in this case, if law enforcement's accurate, there's actually other people who either witnessed this or overheard part of it. So that makes it an even stronger case for the prosecution.
What does lewd conduct by an authority figure entail, and how is it different from just general misconduct?
I think when people abuse their power, it sometimes makes it an even worse situation, because one thing is that kids are told to trust their teachers, listen to their teachers, especially an assistant principal or principal, someone in authority. And when we see someone allegedly violate that power, violate that trust that the student and their family and other people have in them, then that makes it a more heightened crime, not just in the criminal sense, but also in terms of possible disciplinary action by the school. I conduct sexual misconduct investigations regularly for schools across the country. And
for those tuning in, right now we have a school teacher in Polk County, Florida, having a student massage your feet and calling them sexual chocolate. These teachers have gotten out of control, been out of control, really. And I know firsthand, but I mean, this is ridiculous.
when someone's in a position of trust and power, often people will agree to do things with them, including sexual things, because again, people are told to listen to their authority figures. We tell people all the time, students, kids, if the principal tells you to do something, you listen to them, right? So here you have a 13-year-old being told by the assistant principal, massage my feet, allegedly, and he went along with that according to the allegations.
And the alleged victim, he was 13 years old. Does the victim's age increase the severity of the charges?
Absolutely. Anytime someone in authority asks someone to do something like this, that's going to be, at a minimum, something that they can get either suspended or fired for. Often it's criminal charges, but also engaging in some type of sexual interactions with someone who's younger is illegal in every state of the country if they're underage. Many states have specific laws that if someone's a student and someone's an authority figure or an employee at a school, that makes it an even worse penalty. But to go back to your specific question, the younger the person is, the more egregious it is. It's wrong if someone's 17 or 16 and they're a student, but it's even more egregious if they're 13. They're in less of a position to push back, to assert themselves. So anyone who's underage, it's wrong to do this, but if someone's 13, it's even more egregious.
How many years is she looking at, if any? I mean, because this could potentially be her first defense. If this is her first defense, then could she just get probation?
Well, I started as a sex crimes prosecutor 25 years ago, and I prosecuted cases similar to this, although not involving required foot massages by teachers. I had other types of sexual abuse, and I investigate those cases now. There's a lot of factors in terms of what a sentence would be. One would be any prior record that this person has. Another big factor is what the victim and the victim's family are looking for, because sometimes to get a significant prison sentence, you need to actually go to trial. And a lot of times a family may not want their 13-year-old to go through that. Whether the defendant pleads guilty and takes responsibility is a big factor, because often that leads to a lesser sentence, maybe even a non-incarceratory sentence. So those are some of the factors that will determine whether or not there's a long prison sentence or any type of jail sentence from this.
And we talked about it a little bit, moments ago, but let's just dive more into the power dynamic here. I mean, a student and an administrator, just talk more about that, about how, just like how you said, egregious it is.
Sure. One thing that we see in many of these cases that I've prosecuted and investigated is someone taking advantage of the power and control over another person. And again, when someone's an assistant principal in authority over a 13-year-old, the 13-year-old is consistently told throughout their lives, listen to your teachers. Most kids are told that's what you have to do. If an assistant principal tells you to come into their office and then tells you to rub their feet, it's a very, very difficult situation for that 13-year-old to be in, because they probably don't want to do that, but they're also concerned that what heightened consequences would there be for them if they say no? It's hard to push back against someone like that who has control over your academic career and your life at school. So using that power to get someone else to engage in inappropriate conduct like this makes it even more egregious. And we see that in a lot of places in life, not just in schools, but I investigate at companies, people in authority who make the other person, the victim, feel, well, I don't want to do this, but if I say no, what are going to be the consequences? Will there be retaliation? And that's a scary thing for someone to have to think about.
Lark reportedly said she crossed the line to one of the witnesses. Could that be used as a confession in court?
Absolutely. So if someone says something such as I crossed the line, that would be a confession. The question would be the reliability of that witness who said they heard that from this defendant. So if the person who says they heard that or were told that testifies or tells law enforcement and it's deemed credible in trial by a jury or a judge, if it's a bench trial, or just as a part of the evidence consideration in plea bargain negotiations, that's definitely going to be a big factor, because as I said before, a lot of these cases, you just have the alleged victim and the defendant and no other person who is present. Here, it seems, based on what law enforcement has said, that other people heard or saw some of this. And also, as you just mentioned, one of them said that they received what really is a confession to say that they went too far.
Can prosecutors also use her alleged nickname for the student, which was Sexy Chocolate, as evidence of intent or pattern?
Yes, because it's another piece of showing alleged inappropriate conduct, because even without the foot massage, having a sexualized nickname for a 13-year-old in school shows that someone is breaking the norms of what is appropriate in their school. So it may show a pattern. And if the defense is that, oh, I would never do anything inappropriate, but other people heard them using this nickname in front of other people, that doesn't necessarily prove that there was this foot massage, but it does show that this defendant was breaking the rules of decorum, treating people in a really inappropriate way, who are, in this case, the boy was 13 years old. So that is definitely powerful evidence if that's used by law enforcement.
Now, the Polk County Sheriff is saying that during the interview, the assistant principal allegedly said that this was all a joke and that she was just doing this to humble the student. Could that be a defense?
Well, that may be true. It might have been a joke to the assistant principal. That doesn't mean it was a joke to the students. So maybe the assistant principal thought it was funny as a disciplinary measure to make him rub her feet. But from the 13-year-old's perspective, that is a really scary, inappropriate thing to be asked to do. So I don't think that's a relevance at all. It certainly doesn't make the allegations change. If the person's saying, well, yeah, I had a 13-year-old massage my feet as part of discipline for some alleged misbehavior, just because it was a joke. And I see that in sexual harassment cases a lot when I investigate them and the person who's the sexual harasser says, oh, I was just joking. But for the other person, it's not a joke. And that's a really important factor here.
What responsibility does the school have in just protecting their students from staff misconduct? And could they potentially be liable?
That's a great question. Whenever I do an investigation like this, there's always two main parts of it. One is, what did the person who's accused of misconduct do? And the second part is, what did the school know about? And that is always an important part of an investigation like this, maybe not by law enforcement, but by the school administrators to determine, were there warning signs? Did people hear about this nickname that you referenced before and not do anything? Because sometimes before there's an egregious act like the alleged foot massage, there's other types of misconduct like that nickname. And if someone intervened and stopped it from escalating, that could have been helpful. So when you're talking about what kind of liability there is, a big factor is, well, what was known, what should have been known, and were warning signs ignored? Or was this something that no one knew this was going on until this latest act allegedly happened?
Are there any federal laws like Title IX that can come into play here as well?
Yeah, I'm an expert in Title IX investigations, and Title IX would require the school to do an investigation and have some type of process and outcome, and they have concurrent jurisdiction with law enforcement. So while law enforcement's investigating it, the school has a requirement too. But Title IX is a requirement for the schools to do their own internal process to enforce everyone having an experience at school that doesn't have sexual harassment or sexual assault. So it's not a criminal statute, Title IX, but it would require the school to do a thorough investigation with due process for everybody.
Now, if this does go to trial, does the student need to testify, or can the case just move forward without him?
There's no legal requirement for the student to testify, but it would be hard to get a conviction without that student, because the prosecution needs to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. One way they could do that without the student's testimony is if other people did witness the conduct and they testified to it. So that's one way to get a conviction without the student. But often without the student, it's hard to show a jury that has to unanimously find someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's hard to do that without the student. It can be done. There are other witnesses, if there's the admission that you talked about before. So it's not impossible, but it's more challenging then.
Well, like how you said, it's potentially more challenging. Is there, hypothetically, if the student doesn't want to do it, they're scared, or, the parents doesn't want this to happen, could the case just be dropped, or at least just pleaded down?
Well, it's very common for these cases to result in a plea bargain. And in fact, few of them do go to trial. Often there is some kind of plea agreement. And what the plea agreement is sometimes is partially based on whether or not the alleged victim wants to testify, because that gives the prosecution more confidence in going to trial and less need to agree to a lesser plea bargain. But if they know this student's never going to testify in court, their family doesn't want them to, the government's under more pressure to get some type of plea bargain. So at least there's some type of conviction, the alleged victim wants to testify, because that gives the prosecution more confidence in going to trial and less need to agree to a lesser plea bargain. But if they know this.
As you can look and see the teacher here in the bell bottoms, in the Miami Dolphin colors. Oh, this is a very interesting case. I mean, it's headline news everywhere. These people feel like I'm starting to think these people feel like they're above the law. At this point, I gotta believe that.
Students never going to testify in court, their family doesn't want them to, the government's under more pressure to get some type of plea bargain. So at least there's some type of conviction, some type of consequence. And that's going to be one of the things that the government weighs when they're prosecuting this case.
What legal protections are in place to shield the child from re-traumatization if he does decide to testify?
Well, hopefully whoever's prosecuting this, whatever prosecutor's working on it, also gets services for that student, counseling services, support services. Same thing with the school. They should be supportive. One thing that is part of re-traumatization is a fear of retaliation, and that's very common in a case like this. So making sure that both the school and the prosecutors explain the rules that hopefully will protect this 13-year-old from retaliation from either this teacher or other people. It's a very challenging thing to testify in public about something like this. It can be embarrassing. There's a lot of misplaced self-blame on the part of victims in cases like this. So there are a lot of counseling groups in place now that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. So hopefully that gives support for the student.
Now let's talk a little bit about the alleged witnesses. We know that all school employees are considered mandated reporters. Could any of the witnesses who reportedly watched this incident happen get in trouble for not stepping in and stopping it right away?
It's possible. They're certainly going to be asked about that. Maybe if they are cooperating with the investigation and the prosecution, then that's going to be in return for not facing consequences for their failure to act. Maybe they were part of how this came to light. That's something that will be looked into. But the fact that they're cooperating now and giving information now certainly helps their case if they are accused. But a lot of times, as I said before, when a school is looked at for their responsibility, the things that are looked at are other employees aware of the misconduct, and do they allow it to occur? So that's a great question. I think that's something that needs to be looked into more, both by the school itself and by law enforcement.
Now, this is an assistant principal. We don't know who the witnesses are, but, I'm just thinking about the hierarchy of schools. The only person above the assistant principal is the principal and then the superintendent. So just hypothetically playing devil's advocate, could the witness, who I'm assuming, let's just pretend is under the assistant principal, say like, hey, I was afraid as well to stop it, to speak up because they, were just scared of losing their job potentially?
Yes, and we see that all the time where people are afraid to speak up about misconduct because they're worried about retaliation against them. And unfortunately, that's not a fear that is irrational. A lot of people do experience retaliation when they do speak up about misconduct. So it's really important for any school, any organization, to create a culture where they tell people, if you see some type of misconduct, especially involving a student and an authority figure, here's where you should go to speak up. Here's the person who's the point person you can go to, and encourage people regularly to do that. Let people know where they can contact the right person, because a lot of times I talk to school officials, teachers who want to report something, and they say, well, I didn't really know where I should go. So that's really important. And that's something that will be looked at here. What policies, procedures did the school have, and how were the employees and students told about those so they knew where to go if they saw something?
Could the student's family pursue a civil lawsuit against, the assistant principal or even the school?
Well, certainly against the assistant principal, they could, if this is true, what the allegations are. And against the school, anyone could pursue a civil lawsuit. I think one of the big factors about whether they're successful is whether the school was in a position to stop this earlier. Was there something in this assistant principal background check that they ignored before hiring them? Or were there other warning signs, such as that nickname that was being used? Were people aware of that and ignoring that? So those are the types of things that might lead to enhanced civil liability for the school.
Let's talk about attorney strategies. What are the biggest challenges the prosecution may face here?
The biggest challenge I've faced in cases like this is cooperation of the victim, because very often, for understandable reasons, a 13-year-old or someone around their age does not want to testify in court. Their family doesn't want them to testify in court. They don't want their name to get out there. A lot of media keeps the name anonymous, but if someone's testifying in court, often it will get out there. And people understandably don't want that. And that makes it more difficult to get a prosecution that's successful. So that's definitely the biggest factor from the prosecution in terms of challenges.
And just going back to, the family suing, I thought of something. Could they possibly sue for emotional distress as well?
Sure. Whenever someone sues in a case like this, that's definitely a big part of what the lawsuit is, the consequences to that student, whether it interfered with their ability to engage in school after that. A lot of people who experienced sexual misconduct in the educational institution then have a lot of trouble going back to school. excuse me, and learning and studying and things like that when it's the place where they just went through this very, very negative experience. So that's it. And then we've seen people unable to participate in activities, do other things after that because of the trauma. So that is a big part of a lawsuit like this.
If convicted, would Dr. Lark have to register as a sex offender?
That would probably be the case. A lot of it depends on what the specific statute is there and also what the conviction is for. Is there a plea bargain for something that's less? Or if there's a conviction of the top count, then I would expect there would be some registration requirement after that.
And how would, like, walk us through that process? Because that means, like, you know, hypothetically that Dr. Lark would lose everything. You know, she has been an educator for, I'm assuming, many years. Now, if you become a registered sex offender, that means that you can't, you know, continue your career.
Right. I would suspect if an assistant principal is actually convicted with a criminal charge for having a student have to massage her feet, that person's not going to be allowed to work in another school after that. I just can't imagine another school who knows about this and the name is out there now, so it'd be part of any background check, allowing that person to be hired. But again, all defendants are innocent until proven guilty. Maybe there's a defense here. Maybe there's other facts that we don't know about because they haven't been publicly said yet. So we shouldn't assume that the person is guilty. But if someone is convicted for something like this, I have a hard time seeing how they would be put in a position of authority over children again.
Well, let's talk more about the defense. What would a solid defense strategy be? If you were defending her, what would you suggest?
I think any defense side has to first look at the strength of the case. So if the other witnesses were present or they overheard something and this confession, if the defense knows that this confession was real, then I think the strategy really needs to be one of negotiation with the prosecution and try to get the least severe conviction in some type of plea bargain. Because if you do have the student testifying and you have other people saying they either heard or saw it and you have this supposed confession, it's hard to see how a defendant would not be convicted at trial. So a big part of defense strategy is assessing the strength of the case and then negotiating for a plea bargain. So maybe they can negotiate for a reduced conviction that doesn't have jail time, maybe sparing this person having to register as a sex offender. But I still don't see how with any conviction at all, this person would be able to teach again or be an assistant principal again. But again, maybe there are facts that we don't know about that show that this did not happen as it's been alleged.
How long do these types of cases typically take to go through the court system?
Unfortunately, the court systems grind very slowly, and some of these trials take up to a year to get to, maybe even more. A lot of it depends on also, are there plea negotiations that are going on for a while, and that could delay things. Usually it's in the defense's interest to delay things because the longer it goes, the more the witnesses, their memories fade, their interest in testifying fades. So I know as a former prosecutor, you don't want it to be delayed. And often the defense is the one delaying it, trying to buy more time, trying to get more information that'll help them negotiate a plea bargain. But a lot of these cases don't go to trial for a year or more.
All right. Well, this is something that we will definitely be following. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. It's great talking with you.
Polk County Public Schools Superintendent released a statement saying, quote, "This is abhorrent behavior for anyone who works among students, especially an administrator. This person no longer has any business being around children. We commend the school principal for immediately reporting this incident so we could take action and work with the Polk County Sheriff's Office to protect students." For Law and Crime, I'm Kennedy Walker.
So everybody tuning in. Man, another great live. Unreal some of this stuff that's been going on, man. Unreal. I appreciate everybody that stayed through through the live stream. Yeah, through the live stream errors and things that we had going on today. We got another one. Another one. 20 minutes, I don't know.
Middle school teacher secret sex scandal exposed. Cop, it's 12 hours now. 12 hours ago. Subscribe to Law and Crime Network.
Exchange with the 18-year-old. I'm going to break down the details of this case and why this is a crime with renowned predator catcher Chris Hansen. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. A middle school teacher's alleged secret double life has been exposed in a scandal that honestly reads more like a forbidden romance novel than a school disciplinary file, to be honest with you. Erica Matson, a 36-year-old middle school teacher, now faces felony charges after police say she crossed what is essentially an unforgivable line. Straight from the affidavit, it reads that she, quote, did engage in a romantic and sexual relationship with the victim, a student of the school. So yeah, we have another one here on Sidebar, another allegation of a teacher acting badly. And what makes this one disturbing and concerning is that authorities claim this was born out of a very vulnerable moment. So according to the explosive arrest affidavit that was obtained by Law and Crime, this alleged illicit affair began in May of 2023 when the then 18-year-old student, we'll talk about his age in a minute, the 18-year-old student found Matson apparently crying alone in her classroom at Kaleidoscope School of Discovery in Panama City, Florida, and then approached her. And what started out as this innocent check-in quickly escalated into something else, because according to the affidavit, he, the victim, advised that the two began messaging on Facebook and flirting. But then text messages, police say, soon turned into secret rendezvous when the two agreed to meet up outside of school for the first time, and that turned physical quite quickly. And just as an aside to this, Matson was this student's teacher when he was in middle school, and even though he was in high school when this apparently all went down, the two schools are located in the same building, so they would have still seen each other and possibly have had contact inside that building. The principal also told investigators that the alleged victim would have had the authority to report Matson over this conduct, which makes you wonder why the student would have waited this long to raise the alarm. And we're going to get into that a little bit later too. But police say these digital exchanges soon led to an in-person meeting at a local movie theater. Two never made it inside, apparently. According to the affidavit, the victim and the defendant planned to go on a date at the VIP PC Cinemas. He, the victim, advised that they stayed in the truck and talked and made out the entire time. All right, before we get into this, I want to bring on a special guest, friend of the show, friend of mine, renowned predator catcher, host of Takedown on True Blue, and also host of Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen.
Jesse, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Always.
Interesting case, different case,
It is an
right?
interesting case because on the one hand, you've got a teacher preying on a student, no question.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That's abusing a position of authority. But the young man, the victim in this case, is 18. So if they didn't know each other, or the young man was not her student, this is not against the law. But in Florida, where this occurred, it is illegal to abuse a position of power. And that's what's being alleged here.
Do you think that's the right law to have?
I think it is. Because, there's a big difference between 18 and however old the teacher is, a grown woman who's at least 5 years older, right? Yeah. And so psychologically, to put this child in a position, this young man in a position where he is vulnerable, obviously, and especially to take advantage of a young man who is sensitive enough to go to the teacher's side because she was distraught. And for her to take advantage of this and then lure him into allegedly a sexual encounter, it's wrong, and it should be illegal for a teacher to do.
Because it's that position of a power.
That position of power. We're not talking about a grad student who's 25 and a grad instructor who's 35. That's a different story. When we get younger in age, especially in middle school, high school, those children still need to be protected, I would argue.
Now, I wonder if the counter argument was, I was in a vulnerable position. I was crying and he comforted me.
And he took advantage of me as a young adult. Mm-hmm. And that will likely be a defense here, as I'm sure you've thought about before. This is not an easy case to get a conviction on. And I'm shocked, quite honestly, at this point, because we usually see these cases where it's a little bit of a gray area situation. We see a lot of plea agreements in these cases, as you know. I imagine the rub would be, does she get to teach anymore? Does she have to register as a sex offender? What the sentence would be? But this is not criminal sexual conduct. This is, again, abusing a position of power.
You talk about maybe an uphill case. Having said that, the digital evidence, right?
Sure.
Messaging,
The evidence is
flirting on
strong.
Facebook, like that happens so many times in these cases, the digital trail, right?
Well, in our predator investigations, it's very dramatic when the man shows up. We just finished a sting in Louisiana. 9 guys showed up in 3 days, and you'll see that soon on True Blue. But as dramatic as that is, when I confront them, when we see the commission of a felony take place before the camera, it's the text, it's the digital evidence that is the backbone of those cases. And the same is true on the cases we talk about here.
What do you advise parents about? Oh, let me ask you this. What are the red flags parents should be looking for? Because you can't tell your children not to have social media or not have a phone. So what do you do?
Well, I think, look, it comes down to a child knowing they can come to a parent and have an open discussion without being judged or criticized or "I told you so" type.
And for those tuning in, middle school teacher found in distress. One of her students came to comfort her.
Situation, because we see this in the sextortion cases. We got a big documentary at True Blue going on that topic, and these kids are afraid to tell their parents that they screwed up, and they're afraid to face the consequences and the embarrassment of their actions. When in reality, had the kid gone to the parent and said, "Look, I got in over my head here, and this is starting to become something. Help me out of it," it probably would be a much healthier situation for everybody involved. And so it's a challenge for parents, because you want it. He's 18, he's in high school. You want him to get a job. You want him to have some independence. You want him to have a social life, a girlfriend or a significant other. But you don't want him dating the teacher.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm not pretending that this happens every day, but we have seen an explosion.
They're here on Sidebar.
I mean, we're commissioning a whole documentary on it. It happens so frequently.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it. I have theories, but I can't explain why over the last 2 years we have seen an explosion of female teachers accused of inappropriate relationships with students.
Can I get a preview? One of your theories might be?
Well, I think, as always, reporting.
Yeah.
I think the fact that there is digital evidence. 2, and 3, I don't know. I think there's been, I suppose, an explosion in fantasy porn where the teacher-student thing plays out, the daddy-daughter thing plays out, all that stuff that's on these various porn sites, not traditional, adult porn, but fantasy stuff. And I think that leaks into the real world. And I think you see people start to act out upon that.
Very concerning situation, like most of the stories that we cover here on Sidebar. And in a different vein, a very different vein, you know what else is very concerning? We're at a point right now where we know a lot more than we did 10 years ago. And we got to be thinking, what exactly are we eating and drinking, right? I'm very particular about what I put into my body. And honestly, shopping for healthy foods is not easy. It's tough to know what's actually good for you. But that is why I'm so pumped. Thrive Market, oil chips, also healthy food, and free gift when you join Thrive Market today. I haven't even gotten into the next stage of what happened here, but before we do, just real quick, if there is a delay in reporting, why do you see a delay in reporting? If we're talking about something that began in May of 2023, why are we talking about this?
I think, look, he's an 18-year-old man, right? There's some part of him who is getting gratified in this relationship, as wrong as the relationship is. She's an adult woman who's obviously getting something out of it. And so for a minute, at least, there's no interest in either party reporting it. And as always, somebody tells, it gets out. 18-year-old boys are not great at keeping secrets. And one thing leads to another. And suddenly people are asking, what the heck is going on here?
What are the preventive measures schools can put in place?
Well, I think it's screening, right?
Well,
I mean, how do you screen a teacher to make sure that she doesn't exploit a 12, 13, or 14, 15-year-old boy?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to come up with a way to do that. I mean, we see this across the board in our predator investigations. You know, we see sometimes people in law enforcement or people who have been in the law enforcement academy. We see Disney employees. We see people from all walks of life. You know, in the last investigation, we had a guy who drove 6 hours from Arkansas to sexually exploit a teen girl. So, you know, there are warning signs, and it's incumbent upon companies and school districts to do the very best they can to screen anybody who may have a proclivity for this activity.
And you can't like monitor their conversations. You can't
No,
monitor
you
their
can't. You can't.
communications,
And I understand it's not a perfect world, and I understand there's no magic, you know, bullet for this, because I've seen too many different kinds of cases. I understand these guys aren't all one guy, and these women aren't all one woman. And who knows? Maybe for the teacher, it's a fantasy that brings her back to a very enjoyable time of life when she first had a sexual experience, and she wants to relive that with somebody in her class. I can't tell you what's in their minds.
Yeah,
but I think it's a combination of all these things and a perfect storm that we're seeing explode now with all these cases.
So let's talk about that perfect storm, because I want to get back to the night where everything changed. So just days after this supposed parking lot encounter where they were making out, or allegedly making out, the student was at Matson's home, where police say they had a sexual encounter for the very first time, and it wasn't a one-time mistake. According to the affidavit, the victim could not advise exactly how many times the two engaged in sexual activity while he was still enrolled in school, but advised it happened numerous times before he graduated. He did advise that the relationship continued after he graduated from high school. But then there was a smoking gun in this case, one that, if true, you have to think it might seal Matson's legal fate. And before we even get into that, okay, you know, you're talking about multiple alleged sexual encounters. How does nobody notice this?
Well, I think in hindsight, people say, I suspected something. You know, what's this student doing over at a teacher's house? You know, once or twice you can look the other way, but, you know, there are always warning signs here. And it's a matter whether or not somebody wants to take action.
The fact that taking it as a true, the frequency of this happening multiple times, allegedly, and even after graduation, does that complicate the case?
Well, I think that her lawyers will argue that, you know, look, this happened at a very vulnerable time, bad judgment on the part of a teacher, but he's now graduated. The relationship continued. She deserves a pass. Bad judgment does not necessarily constitute breaking a law. The law is pretty clear, as far as I can see in Florida, that if you're a teacher, you shouldn't be having a dalliance in a sexual relationship with a child, with a student.
Yeah, and we talk about what the proof is, right? So we talked about the messages. Remember I said there was a smoking gun? What is perhaps the most damning piece of evidence? Photos. According to the affidavit, the victim also provided pictures of the defendant and him together. The pictures included shirtless photos of the victim with the defendant embracing him and kissing. No way to get past that.
No, there isn't. And you have to not only question why they would do that, but the judgment of somebody who would do that, right? And does that eliminate them from being a teacher altogether? If they've got such poor judgment to do that, well, then not only does it constitute, according to prosecutors, a crime, but it's like, this person shouldn't be a teacher.
You know what fascinates me is there are people who have affairs. Two consenting adults have affairs.
Absolutely.
They keep it so secret. You would have no idea. Right. But in these cases, when you're talking about a crime or
no, they're flaunting
crime,
it. You and I talked about a case some time back in Tennessee where a sheriff deputy's wife was bringing a student to the home, the marital home, and having sex with a student. I mean, how do you think you're going to get away with that?
Yeah.
You know, people get so drawn up in the moment, I think, and so, I don't know, driven by, you know, these fantasies that develop, that they don't see the line between fantasy and reality, and they cross it, and that becomes a felony.
And that's what's happening here, right? So on April 10th of this year, just a few days ago, Panama City Police, they arrested Matson on a felony charge of, as we've been talking about, an authority figure engaging in sexual conduct with a student. And again, even though this is a case where the alleged victim was 18, this statute prohibits any authority figure from engaging in this type of conduct with a student. The affidavit reads, despite the victim being 18 years of age, the defendant did violate the statute due to her being an authority figure at the school the victim was enrolled in. Pursuant to Florida Statute 800.101, an authority figure shall not solicit or engage in sexual conduct, a relationship of romantic nature, or lewd conduct with a student. Statutes define an authority figure as a person 18 years of age or older who is employed by a school, and defines a student as a person who is enrolled in the school. And court records indicate that she was booked into the Bay County Jail, posted a $25,000 bond. But actually, get this, her record also indicates she's representing herself, which raises a whole lot of questions about her legal strategy because she's preparing for an arraignment in May. What do you make of that?
Well, somebody who hasn't thought it through, obviously. I mean, if she was financially unable to have a defense lawyer, the court would appoint one for her, as you know, obviously. But to think that she can argue her way out of it, again, it raises a lot of questions about whether or not this person has the character and judgment to be a teacher in the first place. And I think, based upon what I know about, the state of Florida and the state attorneys there, they're going to want to make an example here. This is a law that doesn't get prosecuted very often, thankfully. Hopefully that's because it doesn't happen very often, but they're going to make an issue out of this one, and they'll push.
And especially because you read the headline, 18-year-old, why is this a crime?
Well, no, it happens in all these cases, Jesse, and you know it. You hear it all the time. Oh, it's a teenage boy's fantasy. Everybody, is attracted to the good-looking female teacher. And be that as it may, it's still a crime.
Yeah.
And it still takes its toll on the underage victim.
It is interesting, though, that she's facing this charge, and as far as I know, it seems to be one charge. I didn't see multiple counts of it.
Saw the one.
Does that signal to you? I mean, if this is multiple encounters, I don't know the charging specifics here, if they can group it all into one charge, but if they could charge her separately for each alleged incident, the fact that it was one charge, does that tell you anything about this?
Well, I think it tells you that they have a very strong case with one charge, and to overcharge her by, accusing her of abuse of authority for each time that there was a sexual encounter, you can see that maybe is being viewed as overcharging.
Yeah, and they might be able to bring evidence in of those other encounters.
Whereas if
you
charge with one count, you've got all this evidence, and if somebody says something about one or two of the incidents, you've still got a pretty good stack of evidence.
And if there's no deal put in place, you have to imagine this young man will have to testify.
Oh yeah,
and that's not easy at times.
No, and even if you are 18, I mean, it's still a situation where he was taken advantage of in some ways by somebody who had authority over him.
By the way, so she made her first court appearance on April 11th. There was a no contact order that was issued, so it prevents her from communicating or having any sort of physical contact with the alleged victim here, as well as being within 500 feet of him. Do you see those violated a lot?
Once these cases get to the prosecution point, anybody who violates that is just begging for a judge to throw them in prison. I have seen it happen under the guise of, I can't live without you, and all the other things that go along with these sorts of cases. But generally, if they're getting proper counsel, they will stay 100 miles away.
Because if they don't, they'll get in a lot of trouble. Yeah. By the way, we can assume that the school that Mattson was teaching at, Kaleidoscope School, probably reeling from these allegations, but the organization, as far as we can see at the time of this broadcast, remaining kind of tight-lipped about the current status of her employment, and they've not yet released a statement regarding Mattson's arrest. Again, she's due back in court on May 15th for an arraignment, and under Florida law, if she's convicted, it's our understanding this is defined as a second-degree felony, and second-degree felonies can be punishable up to 15 years in prison. So let me ask you this. The fact that we haven't heard at the time of this recording so much from the school, you think they're doing their own internal investigation?
Well, I would have to believe they are doing their own internal investigation on two different levels. One, has she done this before with other students? Two, are we making sure we're hiring the right kinds of teachers at this school, right? The fact that they haven't made a public statement to me is a bit surprising, because anybody who's being advised properly, will get out in front of this and say, you know, we obviously don't condone this. We're launching a full investigation. We want our parents and our students to have confidence in the integrity of our employees, and we will make sure that if anything else has happened, we will take action. We will report it to authorities, and we will let parents and the school body know.
In your experience, and I'll end on this point, whether she takes a deal or whether she's convicted, do you feel like prison time has to be a condition here? That you said, setting an example, you think it's important that she serves prison time?
I think if she were to get counseling, registration, and some minimal time in the county jail, this is probably a person, and I haven't studied the case.
Sure.
I haven't seen the pre-sentence investigation or anything like that. But it would seem like that this would be a case that would be eligible for some minor county jail time, definite registration as a sex offender, and intensive therapy and counseling and monitoring so it doesn't happen again. And she's never going to work in a school again. She can't.
Chris Hansen,
Jesse,
host of Takedown on True Blue. Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. So good seeing you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Great seeing you. All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
Shout out to everybody tuning in. Deuce. Everybody coming through. Hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. Man. Had an up and down show. Had some technical difficulties in the beginning. We're going to see about that. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Deuce, you would come in right now. Everybody still up?
Yeah, that's a lot going on. Too much.
Oh yeah. That's some heavy shit. And I mean, it keeps going up and up. I'll probably go on earlier. I got some new people coming in. So I'll try to probably go on early tomorrow. Or today rather. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and
Peace and love.
peace and love. Salute to everybody that came through with that like button, share button. We'll catch up tomorrow, later on today. I'll send out the links. Y'all have a great day, great night. Deuce.